Part 46. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 461. The dogs barked, and the familiar zombie dogs appeared in front of Luo Guang and his friends. Diamond Suit. This dog controlled by the Plaka parasite is codenamed the split-head dog. The name comes from the fact that the parasites in its body will tear open the host's head, revealing the mouth hidden in the body, and use the large number of bone spurs that grow to bite the enemy. But when its mouth is open, it will cause loss of vision, so the human side just needs to find the right time to avoid or directly put the gun barrel into the dog's mouth. When Luo Guang saw the zombie dog, he thought of Xiaobai. It didn't take action in several attacks on the GIMZ base before, because it couldn't be used by the weak ones, and it couldn't help the strong ones. Xiaobai's combat power is stuck in such an awkward position. The only thing it can use is the huge body hidden in its confusing small body to launch a fatal attack on the enemy. But Wesker can survive even if he is short of weight, and then Xiaobai will suffer. So after this incident, Luo Guang planned to upgrade Xiaobai and his clone, so that the GIMZ base would be safe, and even if Wesker attacked again, they would be able to face it more calmly. After dealing with the split-headed dog, they met the previous executioner Majani next. This Majani, holding a giant axe, with many nails and many traces of sutures on his body, had a higher combat power than the others, but he was not good enough to face Luo Guang with upgraded firepower, and still could not withstand a round of light machine gun bullets. Replace the bullets. Luo Guang stopped and started to reload the bullets. Hank, who was left behind, consumed less bullets, and formed an iron triangle formation with the other two B.S.A.S to cover Luo Guang. 2 seconds later, Luo Guang replaced the bullets and the formation was restored to its original state. The next to appear was the chainsaw Majani holding an electric saw. Like the previous executioner, his body was covered with scars and rotten. This disgusting-looking guy was easily solved again without causing any waves. Shiva and Jessica are now used to dealing with these mechanists without guns. They are no longer nervous as they were at the beginning and are growing up quickly. Luo Guang changed to a full bomb chain box again and suddenly said, "No more." Jessica thought he had run out of bullets again. It was Shiva who reacted first. Looking at the fallen enemies around him, he suddenly felt deflated and sat on the ground, panting, and fatigue began to attack him. "Check the bullets," Luo Guang immediately ordered, which was also a break for the other party. Yes, Shiva and Jessica answered mechanically, and then began to check the remaining ammunition on their bodies, while also retreating their wounds. "I'll help you." Hank carried his weapon, took out a medical kit, and treated Jessica's wound. She was the most seriously injured, with a piece of flesh scraped off her arm by an iron hook. That was the wound left by a Makanai riding a motorcycle with a hook and chain. Fortunately, Hank dealt with the enemy in time, otherwise Jessica would have been dragged into the enemy group. "This is the latest product of our GIMZ, and it won't leave scars," Hank kindly comforted her. Jessica's heart was bleeding. This was the first time she had been injured so badly in her life. Shiva stood up and said, "I still have 274 bullets. Jessica also said, "I have 8 full magazines left." The two were not the main output to annihilate the enemy, so they naturally used less bullets. Luo Guang and Hank carried the same number of bullets. But because Luo Guang was a forward and consumed more, Hank decided to give him some bullets. Taking this opportunity, Hank whispered to Luo Guang, "This is not a solution for us. They can't keep up with our speed. The car broke down, and we might have to march or sit in those broken cars with basically zero shock absorption ability. This is extremely physically exhausting." The combat effectiveness of Shiva and Jessica is also good, but one has not yet fully developed, and the other lacks attention to physical fitness due to work reasons. In addition, the continuous battles made the two tired quickly. Luo Guang also knew this and said, "It's okay. Our GIMZ support is coming soon. Support? Didn't the boss ask Lone Wolf and the others to guard the house? Hank looked strange. He thought Luo Guang had called in external support through his connections, or it was a lie to appease Shiva and the others. They are guarding the house, but didn't the boss mention the expansion of the troops before? They are support, and they were introduced by your old lover Susan. You mean the assisting troops? Didn't they start to form yet? I didn't receive any notification. Normally, newcomers would be trained by Hank, so he was very surprised that he didn't receive any notification. Because the GIMZ base has been attacked several times recently, he chose me to train. Luo Guang explained his identity as Wu Song. Hank recalled that the boss did intend to let him go to Europe to perform the mission at first, so he didn't bother about not notifying him. How many people are there? Where are they? Hank wanted to confirm the situation of the support. 666 people, they came from Europe, and have already eliminated the enemies at the outer blockade. After the infrastructure of the sub-base was built, Luo Guang sent a new clone there for training. He didn't let Hank take over the training because he wanted to control all these people. Different from the previous request, this time he asked Susan to recommend some illegal criminals who were so heinous that they could only become mercenaries. This could be considered as asking them to make a contribution to mankind. In fact, Luo Guang did not intend to use his ability to infect and control so many people at the beginning, so when he finally implemented it, he only chose people who were full of sin. There are also some who have been wronged, and those people will be screened out. He gave a stable job to the kind-hearted people among these people. How Luo Guang knew whether the other party was unjustly accused was a matter of course, because none of these people could resist the power of his Shinra virus, which was more accurate than a lie detector. The reason for this was that he needed more troops to command in the face of a huge army of parasites. For example, in the current situation, if he does not have an army of his own, he will need to rely on BSAA or even FBC soldiers for many things. This is not to say that these two anti-biochemical organizations cannot be relied on, but not everyone is anti-biochemical with passion like the biochemical protagonists Luo Guang knows. They will also focus on the interests and entangle the affairs of all parties, such as Ma Go-wan. Therefore, a pure anti-biochemical force is necessary, so Luo Guang will gradually transform the entire GIMZ elite team, starting with Hank. These people are cheaper to hire than people with better moral character, but Luo Guang doesn't use them as a death squad. So he used his money ability to prepare sophisticated equipment and weapons for them, so these people were able to break through the blockade assisted by high-level and flat dual-purpose anti-aircraft guns at the minimum cost. What did you say? Shiva saw the two of them whispering. Luo Guang did not answer, but asked, "How are you and Jessica doing? Can you continue?" Of course, Shiva stood up. Jessica sighed and stood up to show that she shared the joys and sorrows with the others. Shiva's pad machine rang. It was the intelligence officer who told the other party the latest information, saying, "The satellite saw a group of militants breaking through the defense line and coming towards you. Those are friendly forces, soldiers hired by our GIMZ," Luo Guang said after hearing what the other party said. Is it true? The intelligence officer couldn't see Luo Guang's voice, but the phone's radio function was good. Yes, our boss should be contacting your minister now to explain the situation. The intelligence officer had a favorable impression of GIMZ and did not raise any questions. He said, "Received. I will notify others after confirmation." Jessica was very satisfied with the news. It could be said to be the only good news since she started the mission. "Rosa, how is the situation of the capture team now?" Unlike herself, the capture team flew directly by helicopter, so Shiva estimated the time and the team should be at the location by now. Rosa's expression did not change and she said, "Not yet. The beta team's helicopter was shot down in the river port area 5 minutes ago. Because everyone lost contact, and the enemy's anti-aircraft firepower was not weak. Other teams tried to land without success. In the end, we had no choice but to give up the rescue and continue to the factory. It was because of the rescue attempt that we arrived late at the processing plant. Originally, Irwin could shoot down more helicopters, but in order to delay, he only let his men shoot down one, and left the others to take their time. Okay, let's go over and check on the situation of Beta Team. Shiva hung up the communication and looked at Luo Guang, who was the team leader. Let's go then, the people behind us will catch up with us. Luo Guang held the gun and started to take action. The Beta Team's helicopter was directly shot down by an anti-aircraft gun hidden in the iron shed. Fortunately, they were not wiped out. In addition to the helicopter pilot Kirk Matheson, there was still a member of the Beta Team who survived. This member's name is Gudmund Konshane, and he is the sniper of the team. He rescued the trapped Kirk and hid before the enemies surrounded him. It was not seen by satellites because it was a residential area and there were too many broken houses around. The two men had less than 50 rounds of bullets in total, and there was no possibility of breaking out of the encirclement. They could only pray in their hearts that the others did not give up on them. But as the sounds of hovering helicopters and anti-aircraft guns disappeared, despair began to loom over them. "How's it going?" Kirk asked softly, still a little dizzy. This is also to dispel the inner fear a little bit. Gudmund looked very unhappy and said, "No, the pad machine cannot be opened." "Don't you have any communication tools with you?" Because during the mission, neither of them carried a phone. "The helicopter is my communication tool, so I don't have a pad machine." Kirk was also helpless and said, "But I had already called for rescue before the crash, so I don't know if anyone will be sent over." There were footsteps outside, and the two of them returned to silence, not daring to make a sound. Soon, Luo Guang, who was driving a broken car, was overtaken by G.I.M.Z's assisting troops. The car didn't drive very fast, and it didn't have any defensive armor, so when they were caught up, they had not yet entered the enemy's sphere of influence at the river port. "Punisher Unit, reporting to you, Advisor Luo Guang." Vladimir Smirnov got out of the car and saluted Luo Guang and Hank. "The instructor who sent them here has already said who is the supreme commander of this mission. Vladimir is a Romanian, a ruthless man." The scar on his face and his face burned by fire gave Shiva and the others a bad first impression. It can be said that the appearance reflects the heart. The other soldiers who immediately went on alert after getting off the car were also like this, with a bad face. "Did you suffer casualties when you broke through the blockade?" This temporary force originally had a total of 666 people, but now after excluding Hank from his perception, there are only 634 people left. Vladimir's face remained indifferent, with a tough guy style, and said, "Yes, they were seriously injured. We dealt with them on the spot after breaking through the defense line. Although these people were infected with the Shinra virus, it was the simplest version, without any function of strengthening the body and improving self-healing ability. For every person who died in battle, Luo Guang would activate the eternal toxin generated by the virus devouring the flesh in their body. The other party's on-site treatment refers to burying those crystals." Shiva felt a little scared. When the other party mentioned sacrificing teammates, he did not have any emotional fluctuations, as if he was a robot that only knew how to kill. Hank's impression of Vladimir was no different from Shiva's, but he was more receptive. He was just curious about where Susan found so many strong men suitable to be soldiers. Luo Guang gave an order, and the soldiers next to him immediately took out the paper map and put it on the hood of the car. Luo Guang and the other 4 people looked at the map together with Vladimir. He took the pen, from their current location, through the river port, to another town built by the miners, and then stopped writing. "If you take the shortest route, then the next step is to cross the bridge to the mine and go through the mine tunnel." That was to facilitate the transportation of ore and its processed products for export. The locals directly dug through the road built by the mine, so they could go directly through it to the processing plant on the other side. But considering the danger of the mine tunnel, he planned to take a detour, and after leaving the miners' town, take the other side of the river bridge and take another road to the ore processing plant. According to his own ideas, Luo Guang drew the route and asked, "Who agrees? Who disagrees?" Hank nodded, indicating that he had no objection. Shiva could understand that going to the river port first was to see if there were any survivors of the beta team, otherwise it would be better to go directly from here without taking a long detour. Only Jessica had some doubts and asked, "Why don't we just cross the mountains and climb over the mines?" "Because it's a cliff, we can't climb over it." Shiva was also familiar with the environment here and answered Jessica's question. "Then I have no objection." Vladimir saw that everyone had reached a consensus and directly issued new instructions to his men. After the assisting troops allocated a Hummer to Luo Guang and his men, Luo Guang led the way to the river port area where the beta team crashed. Meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 462. Unlike before, they have more people and more guns now, and Luo Guang is ready to push them over. Each vehicle of the GIMZ assistance unit is equipped with a variety of weapons. In addition to the M2 heavy machine gun that provides fire support and close-range defense and the 40mm Mk19 automatic grenade launcher that provides long-range fire output, there are also PKM machine guns with more ammunition because the bullets are lighter, and PDRD anti-tank rifles specially used to attack the weaknesses of giant biochemical monsters. The weapons in the hands of the soldiers are unified as the Type 562 assault rifles of the mysterious country. Because there are a lot of stocks in the warehouse there, Luo Guang bought a lot of them at a relatively low price. This river port is an important import and export hub in the Kazuzu area. It used to be the place where those biochemical weapons buyers got their goods. But now these buyers are basically controlled, and the controller is not Erwin, but Excella. She doesn't want Erwin to have the opportunity to overthrow her superiors. Vladimir, use grenades to clear the way. Luo Guang looked into the distance and found that the enemy had set up a defense line at the entrance of the river port, guarded by several heavy machine guns. This thing still posed a lot of threats to their convoy, so he directly ordered to blow up the enemy, and then suppress the enemy with machine guns to enter the river port. The grenade cut through the sky and flew into the enemy's position, directly blowing the enemy to pieces. "Hank, speed up." Luo Guang killed the enemy with a heavy machine gun in his hand, and gave orders to the driver at the same time. Received. Hank stepped on the accelerator, and the god of death came. The entire convoy rushed into the river port with a devastating force and launched a clearing operation against the Makanai inside. "Shiva, Jessica, you set up a position here, I will give you 2 platoons of troops to assist you." The convoy formed a circle around the crashed helicopter. The 2 platoons did not defend behind the car, but began to select suitable buildings outside the circle to occupy, and then set up a temporary defense line. The reason is simple. The enemies here are better equipped. All of them carry guns, rocket launchers, and other weapons. Although the car they parked here can be used as a cover, it is a live target from another perspective. Moreover, there are a lot of ammunition in the car, which can easily cause a chain reaction. Therefore, the defenders must set up infantry positions outside the circle, and then allocate some vehicles as mobile forces to assist in defense. As for Luo Guang, Hank, and others, they will directly attack and clear the enemies here. He left Shiva and Jessica to defend because the two would affect himself and Hank's true strength. Luo Guang used his ability to make the hiding enemies know where to hide, and then used the high penetration of the weapons in his hands to clear one piece of enemies after another. The other people who assisted the troops were different from his blood plague clones. They had their own CPU. With his thinking speed, he could issue instructions like playing a strategic game. They would use various tactics to solve the enemy on their own. The subordinate Plaka parasite type 3 can also do this, But overall, those Makanai are dumber than the auxiliary soldiers in Luo Guang's hands, and their combat quality is not very good, so they naturally fall behind in the battle. Hey, who is inside? Luo Guang sensed that the two members of the beta team had no parasites in their bodies, so he asked. Who are you? Kirk and Gudmund, who were hiding inside, asked Luo Guang in unison. They didn't know how the other party found them, and they were also worried that this was a trick of the enemy to trick them out and kill them, so they still held their guns and remained vigilant, and did not go out rashly. As for why they replied, it was because they heard the gunshots outside, which was probably a battle, so it was possible that rescue would appear. In fact, if they didn't go out, the other party might not let go of this place, but they had no better way. GIMZ people, do any of you know Shiva? She came with us, but she was defending somewhere else and didn't come. Is it safe outside? Kirk knew Shiva. He or most people in the African branch of BSAA loved her like a sister. Luo Guang replied, we are still clearing out the enemies. Are you injured? If not serious, wait until we have dealt with the enemies here, and then let Shiva come to confirm your identity. Our injuries are not serious, and there is no problem for the time being, Gudmund replied. After clearing out the enemies in the river port, with Shiva's confirmation, the two members of the beta team finally let down their guard and walked out of the broken iron house. Kirk and Gudmund, I'm glad you are all right. Although Shiva was excited, she did not forget Leonard's lesson and did not rush over. Shiva, you are here to pick us up. Kirk was also very happy. This feeling of surviving a disaster was great. Gudmund said, how did you know we were still alive? We checked the situation on the helicopter side, but we are not sure whether you have parasites in your body, so please cooperate with us to check. The two members of the beta team knew the rules and cooperated with the inspection. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the two people, Shiva finally breathed a sigh of relief and gave them a big hug. Seeing that they were too excited, Luo Guang stepped forward and said, Shiva, you and Jessica take the two wounded back first, and tell Minister Magwan about the situation along the way, and ask him to send troops to clean up the parasites in the Kaziozu area as soon as possible. Shiva nodded, but Jessica said, I'll follow you. After all, we are also responsible for supervising your GIMZ. The supervision here is not because of distrust or something like that, but because GIMZ is entrusted by BSAA to assist. If something goes wrong, BSAA will be responsible. It is normal to send someone to supervise and record. So Jessica did not hide anything and said directly that they were here to supervise. If it was not necessary for the mission, she would not say these words. Do you have the heart to let Shiva take people back alone? Aren't you afraid of encountering danger? Gudmund replied, don't worry, although I was injured, I still have combat effectiveness. Kirk also said that he could do it. Luo Guang asked the captain of the assisting force, Vladimir, were there any casualties in the battle just now? 18 people died and 23 were slightly injured. Let them and Shiva form a convoy to go back and rest. Luo Guang gave the order. Thank you. Kirk thanked the other party. If there hadn't been troops supporting GIMZ, by the time BSAA entered the Kazuzu area, he would have already become a member of the parasite zombies. After seeing these people off, Luo Guang said to Jessica, what's your purpose? Didn't I say I would supervise you? G.I.M.Z. Jessica pretended to be dissatisfied and said, why? Do you think I'm in the way? Yes, you are in the way. Luo Guang's iron manly speech made Jessica look indignant, but he didn't give the other party a chance to refute, and continued, next we have to march quickly, you have to keep up. I will definitely not give you the opportunity to look down on me. Jessica gritted her teeth and said, and followed the other party. Wait, Commander, Vladimir suddenly stopped Luo Guang with his hand on the headset. Luo Guang looked back, and the other party continued, our men found a large number of parasite containers. Just when Luo Guang was cleaning up the parasite containers, an uninvited guest came to the BSAA headquarters. Hunter Travis, the supreme ruler of Tri-Union, came to the BSAA headquarters to meet O'Brien in person. The tired O'Brien forced himself to cheer up and started to taunt, "I didn't expect, Hunter, that you would show up in person. Aren't you afraid that I would arrest you?" He could only take this opportunity to vent his recent frustration. "Humph, I didn't expect that an unknown person in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation would become the commander of the BSAA and turn against us pharmaceutical companies." Hunter was very stubborn, even though his family and company were in big trouble now. He had done his homework before coming and had already investigated O'Brien's affairs. "I didn't deal with you. You killed yourself. Biochemical viruses and parasites are not areas that we humans should venture into. But it is undeniable that these things have an impact on the medical community. Even Umbrella Corporation has left behind different medical formulas that are used by various countries." O'Brien shook his head and said, "You got one thing wrong. I'm focusing on people. You don't understand the greatness we pursue at all. So you're here to tell me how great your Tri-Union company is?" O'Brien looked disdainful. He had guessed what the other party was looking for him for privately. The words he just said, in addition to venting, were also testing the other party. When O'Brien was working at the Global Pharmaceutical Federation, he collected intelligence on these big guys. If the other party didn't need help from others, he would definitely not have this attitude. After being ridiculed by himself, he would definitely leave directly with harsh words. This is Hunter's experience of being in a high position for many years and the pride of the Travis family, which made him unable to bow his head easily. Hunter, who had never asked for help from others, suppressed his anger. He saw through the other party's tricks, but he could do nothing about it. Just as O'Brien thought, he did need help from the other party for his family. He did not respond to the other party's words, but went straight to the point and said, "I came to you this time for world peace." O'Brien did not interrupt the other party, nor did he laugh at Hunter's words for decoration. He did not believe Hunter's words for world peace at all. Hunter continued, "The civil strife in our Tri-Union company was caused by a branch of our family, named Excelligenia, president of the West African branch. Do you know this person? We have long suspected her, but there has been no evidence. As McGuan said, BSAA has too many things to consider as an international organization. The anti-biochemical law of various countries basically has severe penalties and pocket crimes. For domestic obstruction, such as the internal agent organization of the lighthouse country, the requirements are not so strict, and they can be arrested first and then collect evidence. But as a department under the United Nations, the BSAA must collect enough evidence, otherwise those senior officials will not be reassured, so the African branch also sent undercover agents to obtain solid evidence before officially starting the operation to arrest Elvin. Hunter heard O'Brien's words and understood his troubles, saying, "I have a recording here that can prove that Excella produces and sells placa parasites." O'Brien asked curiously, "Oh? Where did this evidence come from?" "For some reasons, my secretary and other presidents of Sanlian branches went to West Africa to investigate." Hunter was thinking about whether he could take this opportunity to blame all the biological and chemical weapons matters on the West African branch, so he did not give a specific reason. But how could O'Brien let go of the ambiguity in the other person's words and asked, "What's the reason?" "She said that new medical drugs have recently been developed in West Africa. Pharmaceuticals have always been a key project of our company. Others are also interested in this, so they went over to investigate. Why is it that the CEO has to do this? Can we just arrange these things with someone we trust?" O'Brien was not so easily persuaded. "This is because the other party requested it, saying that this thing is of great significance and may change the entire medical industry, so it needs to be kept confidential. In fact, it means business secrets." "Okay, let's talk about the recording. Let me play the recording first. Hunter took out the player and pressed the start button. Exila, you are rebelling, the head of the house is, Wu. Hunter said with a livid face. It turns out that the investigation team was parasitized by a parasite. Fortunately, the secretary has a listening device in his body, and it can still function after being parasitized, so I discovered something was wrong and avoided being controlled by the parasite. There was no signal in the Secret Research Institute, so the recording could not be transmitted immediately. Fortunately, after the secretary was parasitized, Axela and the others only changed their clothes once. They did not examine the body carefully and only treated the superficial wounds because they were very sure of the parasite's control effect. However, the parasites are not familiar with these electronic components and did not expel them after confirming that they were harmless to themselves. That's why Hunter discovered the problem and immediately began to transfer family members, and ordered the removal of the powers of the presidents of each branch, taking back control, etc. But Exela didn't give him a chance. In order not to alarm Hunter, the secretary was let out last. So by the time Hunter gave the order, other branch employees had already been taken down, and they each used what they had on hand. Resources formed an army of Maginus. Then why didn't you contact us or your partner FBC to solve the problem? You waited until things got to this point before you even thought of approaching us. I have thought about looking for the FBC, but the Sanlian branch of the Lighthouse country is too fast. Through the cooperative relationship with the FBC, many parasites have penetrated into it, and the FBC headquarters has been caught in the flames of war. Although FBC conducted a major inspection after receiving the notice from BSAA and successfully eliminated the pests, Robert, who was subsequently controlled, directly sent a group of machinists to the FBC headquarters. Because of this incident, Morgan's original plan for BSAA was temporarily put on hold. It was decided that the two parties would cooperate to resolve the parasite issue first and ask Sanley and Company to compensate for the losses. Hunter continued what he said before and said, "You also know what happened next. Someone directly dropped parasites into our headquarters, causing a biological crisis. In fact, he initially planned to rely on the power of his company to cover up the matter, so he delayed the processing time." While thinking about how to use Hunter to achieve his anti-biochemical goals, O'Brien said, "Over in Africa, our people are arresting Irwin, who sells biochemical weapons for your company. It's useless to catch him. People like this who show up in public are just abandoned sons thrown out by Exela." Hunter reiterated, "Also, this matter has nothing to do with our headquarters and family. It is Exela who insists on his own way made. So can you provide more conclusive evidence, such as the location of the other party's secret research institute, or where Exela itself is hiding? Doesn't your secretary have a locator other than a monitor in his body? The Africa Division agent's mission to track Exela also failed." Hunter shook his head and said, "I don't have a place for her. As for the secret institute, our people were blindfolded when they went there. I didn't install a locator on the secretary. Because sometimes the secretary wants to help him do some secret things, the location must not be leaked, and if the enemy locks his position through this positioning, it will not harm his life. They shouldn't have been blindfolded the first time, right? I need their location when they were blindfolded, and the time they were blindfolded. With these two pieces of information, O'Brien can confirm the enemy's secret research based on the map approximate scope of the location. I'll have someone investigate the information you need right away. Do you still have anyone you can trust?" Hunter said, "A skinny camel is bigger than a horse. Don't underestimate our family. There is one more thing I need your help with." Say things finally made progress, and the mastermind behind the scenes came to light, allowing O'Brien to relax his tense nerves a little. "I hope you can help me contact leaders of various countries. Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting me out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 463. O'Brien was very curious about the other party's request, so he wanted to confirm the other party's purpose first, and said, "Why, we have people in BSAA all over the world." Rightward arrow. Hunter said, "Because this matter is not only about our company, it is a conspiracy against the whole world. You will know it if you listen to the following recording." He pressed the play button again, and heard the screams in the conference room and his son's voice of dying unyielding again. After hearing the last words, Hunter spoke out his unsubstantiated speculation again. "It's groundless, but I will contact them for you. Whether you can convince them depends on you." O'Brien agreed to Hunter's request after thinking about it, and immediately asked people to contact leaders of various countries. If this intelligence is wrong, it is just a false alarm, and it is not a bad idea to treat it as a global exercise, but if it is true, preparing in advance can save many people. Weighing the pros and cons, even if he loses his job, as long as people are safe, he is willing to take this gamble. Hunter also knew this about O'Brien, so he went to him in person. O'Brien and Hunter were the only two people in the huge conference room, and even the secretary assistant was not present. But the actual participants were not just the two of them. On the giant projection screen in the distance, all the leaders of the countries that could be contacted in the United Nations were present. Time was tight, and O'Brien did not wait for some countries that could not be online immediately, and immediately began to recall. "O'Brien, you called us to a meeting, and it is said that there is important intelligence, involving each of our countries." President Seymour asked immediately after the other party's words, as if he was the convener of this meeting, or the representative elected by a group of countries. In fact, Hunter Travis of Tri-Union has important information, and speculation. "I think it is necessary to inform everyone of this matter to prevent it from happening." O'Brien turned his head to look at Hunter and said, "Go ahead." Hunter had a gloomy face and controlled the computer to transmit the information he wanted to say to all parties, and then said, "This is a document about the Plaka parasite, which is what BSAA notified everyone to be careful to prepare before." Everyone did not interrupt, while checking the documents and listening to the report. He continued, "The president of our company's West African branch, Excelogenio, is suspected of researching and mass-producing this biological weapon." One of the leaders knew what the domestic Tri-Union company was experiencing, and asked, "I remember that the biochemical crisis in the city where your company's headquarters is located is this kind of parasite, right?" Other places related to the headquarters of Tri-Union basically had biochemical crisis incidents, so the leaders of other countries also nodded and said that their countries had encountered the same situation. The lighthouse country has not received any information about this happening in China. Seymour first said a few words to the people outside the screen, and then said, "I think Mr. Hunter should be able to give us a reasonable explanation." Hunter nodded and said, "I will give you an explanation, but before that, I hope you can listen to the recording." He was so humble to save his family and the Sanlian company, which was full of the family's hard work. The first half of the recording was the information obtained by the secretary before the parasite, and the second half was recorded after the parasite, mainly Robert's conversation with Excella before the parasite. The key words are the new era and Noah's Ark. "I don't understand." The Spanish president was puzzled by the content, and he didn't think there was any substantial content. O'Brien didn't answer. Since it was mentioned by Hunter, let Hunter say it. "I think everyone knows the story of Noah's Ark. Combined with the new era, this actually indicates the coming of a huge world-destroying disaster." Hunter expressed his guess and said, "Combined with the parasites she is studying, I guess she plans to use parasites to rule the entire world and establish a new era and a new order." Many presidents looked at each other. They felt that the other party seemed a little whimsical and revealed disbelief in their words. Hunter had no evidence, and this guess was also a big one. In order to take back the company and retaliate, he needed to gain more power. The president of the lighthouse, Seymour, muted the microphone and said something to Leon outside the screen. He quickly nodded and joined the conversation. This may not be false. The British Prime Minister asked, President Seymour, what do you mean? If the full name of the Wesker in the recording is Albert Wesker, it may be true. That guy is the remnant of the umbrella company. He is an ambitious person who wants to rule the world. Regarding this person, Leon told the president the information about Wesker in the Avengers. Seymour continued, that Wesker has ambitions, and they now have the means to achieve them. It's not just a fantasy. After hearing what President Seymour of the Lighthouse Nation said, the others started to talk about it. They would take the other party's words seriously, but they still had great doubts about this matter. Hunter breathed a sigh of relief. The president of the Lighthouse Nation offered to help, which made it easier for him to convince others. O'Brien knew Wesker, but he couldn't be sure if it was Albert Wesker. He concluded, whether this speculation is really the enemy's plan or not, we must respond with the highest level of attitude. Even if it turns out to be false news, we can treat it as a real-life exercise to avoid being at a loss when such a disaster really occurs in the future. At the same time, Lord Wesker, the last batch of parasites was intercepted and could not be sent out, but the other parasites are in place and the plan can be started at any time. That batch of parasites was intended to be used in Africa, and this is Wesker's base camp, so it has little impact on the overall plan. Xella knelt respectfully on Wesker and said, also, our people saw Hunter, the head of the Travis family, enter the BSAA headquarters. What should we do? Wesker sat on the specially made golden throne and said, BSAA was originally our stepping stone. They have prepared enough parasites, right? Yes. Then let's flatten the other party and the BSAA headquarters together in order to avoid more trouble, Wesker said, there is no time to waste, let's start the plan directly. With his order, the Shinwei parasite issued an attack order to the control parasites around the world at the same time. The biochemical crisis broke out in important cities around the world at the same time. A large number of mechani controlled by the Plaka parasite appeared and immediately attacked important places such as J bureaus and barracks in various places. Summer, who was discussing countermeasures in an online meeting, suddenly heard gunshots from inside the White House. Not only in the White House, but also in his headphones, there were various gunshots and shouts. The word that appeared most frequently in the shouts was attack. The meeting was forced to be interrupted, but everyone had already had the answer in their hearts, that what Hunter said was true. Leon immediately drew his weapon, and the notification from the security center sounded in his headphones at the same time. Attention, all units. Zombies appeared in the VIP area. Repeat, zombies appeared in the VIP area. This VIP area refers to the entire White House. Damn it, Leon immediately told President Seymour about the situation. The bodyguard guarding the door rushed in without saying hello, and shouted, Mr. President, there has been an attack, please follow us. Where are my wife and the others? Seymour also has a son and a daughter. The agents around the main building will go there according to the plan. Please open the underground passage and then go into the underground bunker with us to hide. No, I want to go in with my wife and the others, but Seymour refused the other party's request, making the two agents anxious. Leon spoke up to help, saying, President, this attack was a zombie attack, but it could also be that someone wants to harm you, and we have to guard against this. Are you asking me to abandon my wife and children? Seymour was a little angry. He thought the other party could give a best of both worlds. No, Mr. President. Our first priority is to protect you. Only when you are safe can we go to rescue people immediately. This is not pleasant to hear, but the president's priority is higher than his relatives, and the agents have to put Seymour's safety first. Seymour heard Leon's subtext, which means that only after he is safe can more agents be sent to protect his relatives. But he asked, "Can you guarantee that my relatives will not be injured? If they are not in trouble before I arrive?" If he is an old-fashioned person, he will definitely not make such a guarantee full of surprises. After all, Leon is a latecomer. Although he is more smooth and mature than before in trying to integrate into the officialdom, he still retains some innocence and justice in his heart. Seymour looked at Leon, nodded, and said, "Just do as you say. We'll wait for you at the entrance of the bunker." Leon can be said to be betting his career. If the result is not good, Seymour will definitely not give him a good result, even if he is now a little touched by Leon's loyalty to his duties. After watching the president enter the passage to the underground bunker, Leon immediately set off and ran to the main building area of the White House, where the president's wife and others lived. After all, this is not a movie or TV series. Knowing that the enemy is a zombie, those agents should be able to easily solve the attack. But the security center still did not send a safe message, so Leon remained vigilant. Security center, what's the situation in the main building residential area now? Leon wanted to get the latest information, such as the enemy's position and the location of the president's wife and others. Security center, he contacted again, but there was no echo. Damn, Leon did not slow down because he failed to obtain the latest information. In the presidential residential area of the White House, there was no gunfire, and it was weirdly quiet. Leon only saw bullet shells at the outer door, but after pushing the door open, he saw a bloody hell. The agent lying in the pool of blood was like a piece of rag, with no intact piece of his body. The situation at the scene also revealed a lot of information, such as these agents were not killed by zombies, and there were familiar claw marks on the wall. Could there be other types of enemies? Leon thought of the security center that had no sound, and analyzed it in his mind. Regardless of whether it was or not, he told the other agents about his speculation first, but except for the agents on the president's side, the agents in other places did not respond. In order to save the president's wife and the others, Leon took the initiative to shout, "Madam! Are you there?" There was no response, but if the monsters could come to him on their own initiative, it would be a good result. He had followed Seymour closely for a while. According to the current time, the president's wife should be in the living room when the accident happened, and the two children were either watching TV in the living room or doing their own things in the room. In fact, if it weren't for the temporary online meeting, Seymour would also be here enjoying the family happiness with his wife and children. Leon shouted again, but there was still no response, but he heard different footsteps approaching from the corner. The White House did not lose power, so Leon could clearly see the enemy's figure, raised his gun and aimed at the ceiling, and shot directly without hesitation. It was a pink licker with almost zero vision, but very sensitive hearing and smell. The bullet shot directly into its brain, but perhaps because of the mutation, the licker did not fall directly after the brain was damaged, and rushed directly to the shooter. Leon rolled to one side to avoid the attack, and stopped with one hand on the wall, and raised his gun with the other hand to shoot, finally sending the licker to hell. While he was dealing with the enemy, more footsteps sounded, and 3 more lickers appeared in front of him. One was on the ground, and the other 2 were on both sides of the wall. But because Leon remained quiet and did not shoot, they did not attack for the time being, but shook their big heads. Leon stepped on the carpet at the door and carefully moved to a new position. While keeping his eyes on the enemy's movements, he changed to a new magazine. The previous magazine was not empty, and he did not put it back on his belt, but held it in his hand and threw it at the exquisite vase on the cabinet next to the liquor on the ground. With a clang, the vase fell to the ground and bloomed, and the 3 liquors attacked the place where the vase fell at the same time. But how could they have enough space to perform? Not only did they collide with each other, but their waving claws directly hit their companions. Leon also seized the opportunity and shot and killed 2 lickers. The remaining one turned to attack him because of the sound, but because it was accidentally injured by its teammates before, the licker with one leg lost a little speed, and was finally killed by Leon without injury. After dealing with these enemies, Leon entered stealth mode again and moved forward silently. Just as he came to the door of the first floor hall and was about to push the door to confirm whether the president's wife and others were hiding inside, a familiar voice came to his ears. This is the Secret Service Intelligence Center responsible for dispatching and assisting all agents. The White House Security Center has been attacked and is now under our control. Now please ask all agents to go to the president's office to assist in defense. Hannigan's voice sounded like the sound of nature in Leon's headphones. Meow, the new proofreader only has a web version, and the response is slower than when it was free. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 464. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Leon. Hannigan's voice sounded in the headset, and the other party took the initiative to contact him alone. This voice is simply the sound of nature for Leon now. He hurriedly asked, Hannigan, what is the situation in the main building now? While communicating with the other party, Leon stopped pushing the door. Hannigan received an order from President Seymour, so he took over the surveillance camera of the main building of the White House and provided special services to Leon. I am checking the surveillance. The president's wife and 2 children are not in the public area on the first floor, and there is no sign of being killed. You may have to go to the bedroom on the second floor to find them. Received, Leon replied in a low voice. With the help of the other party, he should be able to go much more smoothly, and said, Are there any lickers here? Yes, but those lickers are trapped in the lobby on the first floor, and they will not open the door. The second floor has not been seen for the time being, and there are no signs of fighting. Leon nodded, carefully walked away from the main hall door, and took the stairs to the second floor. He had a preliminary plan in mind. The first was to confirm that the president's wife and the others were safe, and then to deal with the lickers here first, otherwise he would not be able to cover so many people. After telling Hannigan the plan, he asked one more question. Didn't the security center say that there were only zombies at the beginning? How could there be lickers? Ordinary Plaka parasite zombies are relatively simple to deal with, but agents can easily be killed by extremely fast lickers at first sight. But even so, it is impossible to wipe out the entire army. After all, the agents here are the elite among the elite. It was because there was a problem with the intelligence of the security center that caught them off guard. Let's talk about the security center later. I'm rewinding the surveillance video of the main building area. You finish the task at hand first. After a pause, Hannigan said, Confirmed, the president's wife and the others have entered the president's bedroom for refuge. Although there are no cameras in private areas such as bedrooms, there are cameras in corridors, so the playback can still confirm where the president's wife and others hid. It is worth mentioning that the main building is the area where the president and his family live. Although there are surveillance cameras, they cannot be viewed without the president's order. Received because there were no lickers on the second floor, Leon found the president's bedroom according to Hannigan's words. He did not knock on the door, but asked directly, I am Leon, are you there, madam? Hannigan was helping him watch, so he did not lower his voice. Leon? We are all fine, where is Seymour? Did Dad send someone over? Great, Mom, woo woo woo. The other party opened the door for him to go in. Leon first reported the situation to Hannigan, and then said to the president's wife, the president entered the passage of the underground bunker and said he would wait for you to arrive before entering it. Really, it's time to be angry, isn't this making it difficult for you? The president's wife pretended to be dissatisfied, but her heart was full of emotion. Then she told her own experience. The agent responsible for their safety had actually joined them. But when they left the main building and went to the president's office in the West Wing, they were attacked by the lickers. Those agents used their lives to cover their escape and hiding. Leon first told the other party his plan and asked for his opinion. After all, he was going to leave these people behind, so he had to ask the other party's ideas. "I have another plan." The president's wife didn't want to shiver here with her 2 children in her arms anymore. She needed a sense of security. "Please speak." "Before that, I want to ask, how many enemies are there now, and when will the support come?" President Seymour's wife was not a person who would wait for nothing. She was also a smart woman. She was a lawyer before she met President Seymour. Leon directly conveyed the question to Hannigan, and then replied, "The support from the Secret Service will arrive soon. They will clean up those zombies and lickers. If the president's wife doesn't want to take the risk of going to the West Wing, it's okay to wait where she is." He was stuck in the middle, just being an emotionless mouthpiece, and must not express his own opinions. The president's wife nodded and breathed a sigh of relief, saying, "In this case, it's better for us to stay here and not run around. Can Leon help us contact the president? I'll persuade him to go into the bunker." Hannigan quickly contacted the agent around the president and confirmed the situation with the president. Finally, President Seymour borrowed the agent's communication equipment and contacted his wife and children. After both sides showed concern for each other, the president's wife expressed her thoughts and persuaded the other party to enter the bunker first. Seymour breathed a sigh of relief, agreed with the other party, and repeatedly told his wife and children to obey Leon's orders. Leon put the headphones back on and said, "There are still monsters you encountered on the first floor below. They have poor eyesight, but their hearing and sense of smell are excellent." He looked around and asked, "Can you please spray some perfume at the door and window to confirm that the monsters can't smell human?" The president's wife would naturally not be stingy, and she would just ask her husband to buy it later. She comforted her child a little, and then finished the perfume spraying work under Leon's protection. "The rest is to wait. Lion, the cleanup is complete. The president is coming to you, be ready 10 minutes later," Hannigan informed Leon in a low voice. "Thank you," Leon whispered back, and then said to the president's wife and the others, "The enemies in the White House have been cleared, and the president is on his way here." "Very good." "Yeah." The 2 children cheered for joy. They were already very active, but they had been on tenterhooks just now. They had been curled up in their mother's arms and did not dare to move. The quiet atmosphere was too depressing for them. The agents who came to support cleaned up and conducted a second inspection before reporting the news that it was safe, so there were no accidents on the way and the president and his family were reunited. The attack is over, but there are still many things to deal with. After meeting with the president's wife, Seymour did not stay in the living area of the main building, but returned to the West Wing again. At this time, the president's relatives were in the room next to the president's office, waiting for Seymour to complete his work. This means concentrating protection on important personnel. After the attack, the agents would not and did not dare to leave immediately. Instead, they sent additional manpower to strengthen patrols and defenses of the White House. There are now more than 20 agents with various weapons in hand in the corridor outside the president's office. Their captain's name is Tristan Jason. He is a war hero who has returned from Palestine and is on standby in the president's office. The war hero successfully joined the Secret Service on the recommendation of Major General Wilson. Originally, the biochemical attack on the White House would be the highlight of his debut, but it was outdone because of Leon's rescue of the president's wife and the others, disrupting Major General Wilson's plan. But Tristan didn't hate Leon because of this. Hannigan, who came from the Secret Service, came to the president's office with summary information. The agents lost 26 people, and the officials who were in the White House at the time lost 7 people. The list of all the people who died is here. There are no injured. Hannigan first handed the president a list of victims of the White House attack. You must do a good job in the follow-up pension work and report to me later. President Samur's simple words are enough. He picked up the list of sacrifices. As for the agents, it was easy to add, but the appointment of officials had to be carefully considered. A fight was inevitable here. Let's talk about the situation in detail. Although President Samur is a relatively conservative person, it does not mean that he will not be angry if he is attacked. This attack did not hit him in the face, but the face of the entire lighthouse nation. For him and the victims, making the enemy pay is the most important thing. According to the investigation, this incident may have been an attack initiated by two parties. President Samur lowered his head slightly and said, "Reason. Lickers come in from the outside, whereas zombie attacks come from the inside, and they're two different types of biohazards." Samur asked, "Does the analysis department think there are two incidents because one is a parasite and the other is a virus?" "Yes, according to what we learned in Peace City, in order to compete for resources, the two cannot coexist. In addition, from the perspective of cost saving and convenient management, they will not be used together. The Lighthouse Nation also has its own intelligence channel in the Bear Nation, and although BSAA is not completely controlled by NATO like the FBC, there are people from the Lighthouse Nation joining it." "I understand, go ahead." Hannigan gently put the information on the desk and said, "Those liquors were brought by a truck. The target was very clear. After the enemy dropped the liquors into the White House, they drove away directly. Surveillance scope. The Secret Service has been hunting based on the license plate and model. At that time, there was a zombie attack inside the White House, which caused loopholes in the peripheral defense, and those people took advantage of it." She continued to report, "This group of people seemed to know our security very well. Almost at the same time, the security center was also attacked. In order to prevent someone from secretly occupying it, this security center is mobile and will change its location regularly." Hannigan added, "And the ones who attacked the security center were not zombies or lickers, but humans. But when we sent people over, the other party had already left. Then why are there not three groups of people, but two groups of people? Because there is no point in simply attacking a security center." Hannigan believed that only one of the parties did it in order to successfully attack, and continued, "Based on the current situation, the person who attacked the security center most likely did it to allow those lickers to successfully sneak into the White House." Based on his own experience, Leon said, "Yes, at first, the security center only mentioned the appearance of zombies, and then lost contact. This resulted in the agents escorting the president's wife and others being raided by lickers, and the entire army was annihilated. If you are on the parasite zombie side, normally you should capture the security center first and then let the zombies explode from within." President Summer scanned the people in the room with her sharp eyes and asked Hannigan or the Secret Service behind her, "Are you confident in catching these people? This is the most cost-effective method. If you catch those people, the Secret Service will naturally have a way to pry open their mouths and ask the real culprit behind the scenes." Hannigan answered truthfully, "It's difficult. The FBI's Skynet plan was rejected a few years ago. There are no surveillance equipment in many places, and the enemies have concealed their appearances. Now we can only track the cars they use. It will be difficult to track the prisoners later. This Skynet plan is actually to install cameras in public areas across the country." President Samur did not get angry because of Hannigan's answer. He looked at the information and fell into deep thought, then asked, "What about the enemies inside?" Hannigan continued, "The third page begins with the surveillance pictures of White House insiders mutating into zombies. Preliminary analysis of the corpses through the scanner can confirm that the cause of the mutation is the Plaka parasite in their bodies. But we just recently screened it and changed a group of people. Samer felt that under this situation should not happen internally. The analysis department suspected that there was a mole in the security center, so they knew the location of the security center and placed parasites in the White House. They also had an idea. The scanner can only detect Plaka parasites in larval or adult form. So it may be that the new batch of people have problems themselves, and we are investigating from these two aspects. She paused and waited for the president to read the information without asking any questions before continuing. One more thing, judging from the information reported by the CIA, there have been many cases of the Plaka parasite in Europe in the past few days. Related biohazard incidents. Leon added, there was also an incident in Africa, where people in a whole town were parasitized by similar parasites. The suspect was Ricardo Irwin, a former Sanlian company and current biochemical weapons black dealer. BSAA was already there. Carry out arrests. Luo Guang didn't have time to upload this information to the Avengers forum. The Red Emperor updated it in real time, so Leon learned the details. The president knew about Africa, so he told Hannigan. President Samur said, just when this attack occurred, I was having a remote meeting and got some intelligence. This parasite attack was most likely the president of the African branch of the Triple Company and the guy named Wesker. Do it? Jason's eyes blinked. He was too familiar with the company's name. Hannigan was a little surprised that she had not received this information and asked, can you tell me the specific situation? After getting the president's permission, Leon took over and told the contents of the video conference between them and the BSAA headquarters. Suddenly, the president's cell phone rang, interrupting Lyon's words. Summer glanced at the caller, answered the call, and asked, Morgan? What's the matter? The caller was none other than FBC Supreme Commander Morgan. Your Excellency, I have some bad news. Is there any worse news than a biological attack on the White House? I'm on speakerphone. Samur turned on the speakerphone and put the phone on the table. The attack on the White House should not be publicized, and it can be solved by relying solely on the Secret Service, so it was not reported to the BSAA and FBC, and even the military does not know about it now. Morgan was surprised by the attack on the White House, but he quickly came to his senses and said, biochemical crises have broken out in various states across the country, and even our headquarters has been attacked. I suspect it is a conspiracy by Sanley and Company, because the zombies that came over were sent to our headquarters. President Summer felt tired. There was really worse news than the attack on the White House. Leon said, I heard that there have also been many biochemical crises involving Plaka parasites in Europe. Morgan recognized the other party's voice and said, your Secret Service is also very well informed. That's right, and at almost the same time as we were attacked, people from the FBC European branch also received multiple Plaka parasite attacks. Report. It was also the Plaka parasite that attacked the White House, President Samur said. Then, he asked Leon to repeat the content of the previous video conference. However, mid-sentence, there was a knock on the door, and it was Simmons himself. With such a big event like the attack on the White House, and what was happening across the country, he definitely had to come in person to discuss countermeasures. Although he still looks a little haggard, Simmons has bright eyes and is in good spirits. The reason was also very simple. Ada took the initiative to contact him for the first time and told him the man behind the catastrophe and all kinds of information. Okay, now, Leon talked about the video conference again for the third time. It was only 3 things, and finally no one interrupted him this time. After listening to this, Simmons told the information he had obtained, and said, all branches and subsidiaries of Sanley and Company have been captured. It may be more accurate to use the word corrupted. They are all parasites called Makani. Zombies. The people infected by these parasites can't see any clues. How did the agents confirm that the people in those companies were controlled? Leon asked. The scanner cannot scan enemies from a long distance. This is confirmed by my intelligence sources. This is one of the pieces of information Ada gave Simmons. Later, Wesker didn't ask her to do anything, so naturally she wouldn't come to him. As for Simmons, because she felt psychologically disgusted, she did not contact him to expose Wesker's plan. She planned to collect evidence on her own first, and then expose Wesker and the others. So she went undercover in another branch of Tri-Union in the Lighthouse country and was almost parasitized by parasites. After investigating several more companies, based on Wesker's personality, she boldly speculated that Tri-Union had fallen into Wesker's hands, just like the HCF organization she had been in before. After learning this situation, Ada did not look for Leon. This conspiracy was not something that her little dog could solve. After struggling again and again, she took the initiative to contact Simmons, who was suffering from single-mindedness, for the first time and told him the tip of the iceberg of Wesker's conspiracy. In order to stimulate the other party's motivation, she also hinted that Wesker was interested in her, trying to arouse Simmons' male possessiveness. It can only be said that the effect is outstanding. The omnipotent Simmons in Kara's eyes is back. Simmons told Ada's intelligence, Wesker used parasites to seize the Tri-Union company of the Travis family, and then used its globally distributed companies and resources to use parasites to rule the world. He hid Ada's name because Ada herself was an international wanted criminal, and telling it out would only lower the credibility of the intelligence. Agent Kennedy also speculated, so President Seymour nodded and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the country and the world are in trouble. I want to directly declare the country to be in a state of war. We will support your decision, President." Simmons' words did not represent him personally, but the forces behind him, and also implied that the President's resolution in Congress would be quickly passed. As countries around the world successively issued announcements against the Plaka parasite biohazard, the biohazard incident later known as the corporate chaos officially kicked off. Meow, I'll finish writing 5K at one time, so I won't divide it into 2 chapters. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 465. Luo Guan came to the shipping area of Hegang and looked at the storage cabinets with parasites on the left and right inside the open cargo box. Diamond suit, diamond suit. Each cabinet is a regular hexagon like a hive room, and inside it contains a living Plaka parasite. Vladimir asked, "What do we do with these parasites?" While answering, Luo Guang also gave instructions, seal the perimeter and then burn it on the spot. Be careful not to be parasitized. Where were the parasites here originally going to be sent? Jessica was curious about the purpose of the Plaka parasite in the cargo box. Vladimir replied, "We found no such thing as a shipping note." Luo Guang shrugged and spread his hands, saying that he had no clue, who knows, but it is definitely not a good thing, so let's go and help, check all the boxes, and burn these parasites together. He and Jessica acted together to confirm that the other party did not take the opportunity to steal parasite samples. After cleaning up, they continued on their way. Less than 5 minutes later, Jessica suddenly received a contact from Ma Guan. She turned on the speakerphone and listened to the other party's words with Luo Guang. After all, she could only rely on the other party's troops for action now. Communication with other forces failed. If that was the case, Ma Guan wouldn't have to call them specifically. He continued, "Then they launched a direct surprise attack on our troops on the blockade. Our soldiers on the blockade suffered heavy losses and were unable to stop the enemy's attack." Luo Guang's face was solemn. He was not worried about his own safety, but worried about the hidden problems behind this matter. He asked, "Are those people parasite zombies?" According to the reported situation, it is the same parasite as what we are dealing with. Now it seems that the surrounding forces have long been infiltrated by Irwin. Due to orbital problems, Luo Guang's own satellite was temporarily unavailable, so he could only ask BSAA, "How far away are they from us? How are the elite team doing? We have broken through the defense line. I don't know how far away we are from you." Because large-scale biohazard incidents have also occurred in other places, I moved the satellite away and did not capture their situation. Ma Go-won knew what the other party meant when he asked about the elite team, and said, the team has lost contact. I don't know what the situation is now, but they must have not completed the mission. Okay, let's go there immediately and see if we can help. Luo Guang suddenly thought of something, turned around and shouted to the people around him, Jessica, contact Shiva immediately. See if they have escaped from the Jizuzu area. He was worried that Shiva might just happen to encounter an enemy coming in. I have contacted her, but there has been no response. Magwan initially contacted Shiva, but he contacted Jessica after the other party did not respond. He continued, I will ask the intelligence department to continue to contact and tell them about the situation. You should go and arrest Erwin now, and then evacuate back immediately. Receive. Commander, all the parasites have been cleared. Vladimir happened to have completed the task. Hank also nodded to Luo Guang and said there was no problem. The plan has changed. I will go directly to the ore processing plant to deal with Erwin. Hank, you are responsible for leading the team back along the way to rescue Shiva. Time was running out, so Luo Guang decided to deal with Erwin first, instead of carrying out the task of cleaning up the parasites. Not only was the surrounding forces controlled by parasites, but the Red Emperor had just informed him of the information about biological crises occurring around the world. Luo Guang felt bad. Wesker's plan was one step ahead of his own. At this time, Erwin was sitting in his office, holding a glass of red wine and slowly tasting it. He said it was a tasting, but he actually knew nothing about wine. He just thought it was high-end and full of aristocratic flavor, so he bought a bunch of extremely expensive wines. Of course, as a noble, how could he just taste wine alone in such a monotonous manner? He must prepare a performance that suits his status. On the screen in front of him, a grand show was going on. B.S.A.'s elite team, excluding the beta team that crashed at the beginning, other teams also suffered a lot of attacks when they parachuted into the mineral processing plant, and several teams lost manpower. In the end, they relied on the armed firepower from the helicopter to gain a foothold and enter the factory. After that, these helicopters emptied their bullets and cleared out the enemies outside the factory, then evacuated and returned to supply supplies, preparing to assist the team in evacuating later. After entering the factory, the BSAA team immediately reorganized the team, organizing the 7 teams into 4 teams, and then dispersed to clean up the enemies inside, while searching and arresting Erwin. And this was all what Erwin expected. His factory was like a dollhouse at this time, preparing all kinds of surprises for the BSAA team. Alpha team entered a maze room full of glass, and Erwin placed a large number of mechani with melee weapons inside. This room was the advantageous venue he prepared for these melee mechanists. In this regard, Captain Dan DeCanty chose the most direct method. He was not interested in playing the maze and just asked people to smash the glass with bullets. Of course, Mechani, who was hiding inside, had nowhere to hide and was easily eliminated by Alpha team. Mirage, contact the other teams and tell them to be careful. Although they easily solved the trouble here, they didn't know if Erwin would have other bad ideas, so Captain Dan asked the communication soldier of his team to notify others quickly. Milaji is the only woman in the team, but her figure is even more burly than other male team members, and she is not a weak woman. She operated the communicator and quickly replied in a clear and pleasant voice, Captain, the interference here is very serious, and there is always noise when communicating with other people. Captain Dan thought that the enemy wanted to defeat them one by one, and said, let them find a way to contact another team to act together. Who are the teams around us? Delta team. Let them come. Yes. Josh Stone led the team over, and the communicator was not clear. He thought that the other party had found something and asked him to come to assist, so he asked, Dan, did you find anything over there? Captain Dan expressed his concerns, Josh, the environment here is more complicated than expected, and our two teams will cooperate. The two teams solved Makenai all the way and continued to go deeper. Generally speaking, the enemies with guns did not cause them any casualties. Because these guys are basically Makenai who have been transformed from militias, they know nothing about combat skills such as CQB combat, and they mainly rely on their own enhanced physical fitness to fight. The reason why they can fight back and forth with BSAA outside the factory is just because they have the advantage in numbers, and the team members are in a weak period of rope descent at that time. Once they meet in the factory, they will be exposed. Miraji, who had been paying attention to communication problems due to signal interference before, suddenly said, "Captain, the signal is completely interrupted, and there is no response from contacting other teams." She didn't believe that other teams were wiped out in such a short time. Josh also asked the person in charge of communication in his team to try it, and said, "It's the same on our side. It seems to be the enemy's means. Rightward arrow." "But we can't retreat now." Captain Dan joined BSAA indignantly after witnessing the biochemical disaster, and naturally he would not give up the mission because of this difficulty. The other team members thought so too, and the two sides hit it off and continued to move forward. Irwin was looking gloomy at this time, and he focused all his attention on the Alpha team, because this team destroyed his carefully prepared mirror maze without saying a word. With a swish, a militiaman Makenai's head exploded, and the parasite replaced the head, like a tentacle, with a sharp bone knife at the end as a weapon, and quickly shot at the people of the Delta team. David Johnson of the Delta team quickly lay down and immediately counterattacked. Several bullets directly hit the exposed parasite, ending the opponent's life. "Is everyone okay?" Josh looked back. "Sorry, I was a step late and my arm was cut," someone replied, and he was already disinfecting the wound at this time. Although it was not mentioned in the intelligence, it did not mean that the enemy's attack was not infectious, so Josh said, "If you feel uncomfortable, tell us in advance." Click. One of the members of the team who was walking forward stepped on the mechanism, making a crisp sound. "Be careful." Before he finished speaking, the fences on the drains under the walls on both sides of the corridor all fell off, and several Plaka parasites that had no host yet ran out and attacked them in a siege. As the chaos appeared, Makenai also ran out from the front and back of the corridor, surrounding the two teams in the middle of the corridor. The two teams were very tacit. Under the cover of Captain Joe, the Delta team kicked the parasites and split into two teams to come to the front and back of the team to attack the Makenai on both sides of the corridor. They trusted their teammates. The Alpha team did the same, split up to counter-encircle the parasites that appeared in the middle, and put bayonets on their weapons. A team member was hit in the chest by the enemy's bullet, and the parasite found an opportunity to block the mouth. Captain Joe knocked down the parasite that pounced on him with the butt of his gun, and kicked the parasite when he ran over to save people, and stepped on it directly. "Let him go!" he roared, stabbed the parasite that was about to drill into his teammate's body with his bayonet, and then pulled it out with an upward thrust. Ahem, ahem. The parasite in the mouth of this unlucky guy was pulled out, and his mouth was full of wounds, causing him to spit blood continuously. Captain Joe had no time to ask him about the situation. After dealing with the parasite, he immediately raised his assault rifle and shot at the Makenai holding the gun. There was no cover in this corridor. Captain Dan saw that the parasites were dealt with, and he supported the injured teammate with one hand and shouted to Josh, "Let's press on." Here he did not say before and after, in fact, just follow his direction. Except for a few people who were already dead, everyone responded and started to move. Those Makenai used 7.62mm bullets, which were powerful and penetrating. BSAA brought American Standard Level 3, 2.6 kg ceramic composite plates for this mission, which could just withstand bullets fired by AK assault rifles. However, considering that the bulletproof plate was heavy, they only brought one piece and stuffed it in front of their chests. Even the hemostatic guns they carried could not stop the bleeding. One of the members of the Alpha team was shot in the carotid artery, and the blood gushing out could not be stopped immediately. He kept firing all the bullets before he fell down. Coincidentally, another member of the Alpha team was shot in the back and died. The last person to die was from the Delta team. He was shot in the face and died on the spot. 2 of the remaining people were injured. One of them was shot in the chest and almost parasitized by parasites. After taking anthelmintics and anti-inflammatory and disinfectant drugs, he was still able to maintain a certain combat effectiveness, but his speech was unclear for a while. The other person was seriously injured. He was shot 4 times in total. 2 shots were blocked by the bulletproof plate in the chest, and the remaining 2 shots were shot in the right hand and right leg. The arm could not hold the gun directly, so he could only shoot and change bullets with one hand, but only a piece of flesh was scraped off the right leg, and a little hemostasis treatment was enough. They could only fight and retreat, crash into one of the houses, prepare to defend the exhausted troops, and treat the wounds of the wounded at the same time. At least they had to ensure that the 2 wounded could still maintain their mobility, otherwise they would not be able to evacuate with the wounded. The situation of the team was not good. The enemy seemed endless, and they could not contact other teams and the outside world. All these made Captain Dan want to retreat. At the very least, they should evacuate to a place where they can contact their superiors and ask for more support. This is not because they are afraid of death, but because the intelligence is wrong and they don't have an accurate understanding of Elvin's manpower. The enemy seems to be gone after Josh defeated the last Makenai. He waited for a while but no enemy came, and the whole factory became quiet, as if the battles in other places were over. Captain Dan looked at the injured and asked, "How are you? Can you continue to fight?" The guy with the mouth injury nodded. He was the one who helped another wounded man deal with his wound. The wounded man raised his gun with one hand and nodded to indicate that he could. "Captain Dan, I have a suggestion," Captain Josh of the Delta team suddenly said. "You say Captain Dan felt that the other party might also think that this mission was in trouble and wanted to retreat temporarily and wait for more support." Josh said, "Your team will take the wounded and temporarily leave the factory to contact the headquarters. We need more manpower support." The Delta team responsible for cover suffered fewer casualties because they faced the enemy head-on and adopted a squatting position. No one was injured, and only one person was unlucky. They could actually lie down and shoot directly, but that is not called covering teammates, but standing up directly is called cover, so they compromised and chose to squat. In contrast, in order not to accidentally hurt teammates, the Alpha team can only fight at close range, so they cannot reduce their bulletproof area. In addition, they only have bulletproof splints on their chests, so one of the sacrificed people fell down after being shot several times in the back. Now the Delta team still maintains a roughly complete combat effectiveness, while the Alpha team may have less than half of its combat effectiveness. Therefore, Josh made such a decision and asked the strongest team of the African branch to contact the headquarters for support. Captain Dan thought quickly and asked, "What are your plans next?" "Continue to carry out the mission." Josh was determined and said, "Yes, support may not be able to come here for a while, and the situation of other teams is probably not much better. So I want to catch Elvin and threaten him so that we can survive." Captain Dan nodded, and was about to get up and prepare to split into 2 groups, when suddenly a thick fog poured into the room from the vent. The BSAA team immediately put on gas masks. However, this time, Irwin prepared a combination of punches for the 2 teams. First, he blocked their vision with sleeping smoke, and then Makenai rushed into the room with handcuffs, sticks and other blunt weapons. He wanted to have a good time with the BSAA people and make sure they felt his hospitality. "Meow, meow, are there any better chairs? My waist is so tired." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 466. Josh, the leader of the Delta team, groaned a few times and woke up. He felt that his head was a little bit immobile and a little confused. He suddenly woke up and was frightened in a cold sweat. He was just performing a mission and fighting for life and death with the enemy. The weapon was gone, but the flashlight was still there. He looked around and began to confirm where he was. This was a concrete room without any decorations, furniture, or lamps. There was only a huge iron door embedded in the concrete wall. And his team members were all lying on the ground, not knowing whether they were alive or dead. Josh hurried over to confirm the situation. The others were just unconscious, but they were still breathing, which made him feel relieved. David Johnson was woken up and asked after listening to the captain's explanation, "Where is the Alpha team?" Josh replied, "I don't know. The weapons on our bodies were also confiscated, but we are still alive." Another team member said pessimistically, "This may not be a good thing. Is it possible that we have parasites in our bodies?" Everyone who heard this couldn't help but feel cold on their backs, but their scanning guns were not there, so they couldn't confirm it at all. Josh took a deep breath and touched his waist. The medical kit was still there. He said, "The medical kit is still there. Let's take a few anthelmintics first." This anthelmintic was not developed for the Plaka parasite. Whether it is effective against it depends on luck. David took the medicine and stood up on his knees. He still felt uncomfortable and weak. It was not just because of the coma drug. They were all wearing gas masks. The reason they fainted was that the enemies knocked them out with sticks and tore off their gas masks to make them inhale the mist. He came to the iron door and pulled the door handle. The iron door could not be opened naturally, and the small window on the door could not be opened from the inside. They were trapped here. David reported the situation, and everyone was discussing what to do next. Suddenly, the iron door made a creaking sound and slowly opened. The faint light outside shone in. The people of the Delta team were resting when they were discussing just now, and their bodies finally had some strength. They immediately turned off the flashlights, hid on both sides of the door, clenched their fists and prepared to sneak attack the enemy who came in. There was no shadow shining in, and Josh did not go out rashly. After waiting for a while, he signaled his teammates, and then carefully poked his head out to confirm the situation. There was a dead end on the right, and there was a half-closed door at the end of about 10 meters on the left, but he did not see the enemy on either side. Josh made a safe and follow-up gesture behind him, and then left the room. Everyone came to both sides of the half-closed door. Although they did not have guns, they pushed the door open and still used the corner-cutting technique to confirm the situation in the room. The people of the Delta team were very surprised to see the situation inside. Because there were no enemies inside, but all their weapons and equipment were piled on the table in the middle. In addition, there was another closed iron door. What's going on? Although David wanted to take back his weapons immediately, he did not dare to act rashly without the captain's order. Josh shook his head and ordered, "Check the room." But they found nothing. There was no trap waiting for them. They were very confused, as if they had traveled to a strange world. No matter what, after checking the weapons, they put them on again. With guns in hand, they felt a little relieved. After a while, the iron door opened automatically without warning, which scared the resting team. Perhaps because there was no other choice, Josh quickly made up his mind and led everyone into the iron door. After walking out of a short corridor, they came to a room of hundreds of square meters. Josh and his team were very familiar with the layout of the room, which was very similar to the scenario training ground and CQB hut in their base. Ladies and gentlemen, the Delta team from BSAA entered from the left, and the elite mechanist from our Tri-Union company entered from the right. The joyful voice echoed throughout the space, and Erwin and Josh were getting impatient. But for the sake of the show effect and to save the last surprise until the last moment, he did not tell the answer in advance, and reported the situation on both sides in a cheerful voice. "BSAA guys, are you satisfied with the arena I carefully prepared?" His tone suddenly changed, and he said, "Oh, it seems that the Macon can't wait to tear the enemy apart, and have already set off, while the BSAA on our other side are still in a daze." Erwin confirmed and recorded the situation through the surveillance here. This is the entertainment video and actual combat data he specially designed for Excella. Unfortunately, the other party was busy, so he could only take it first and then send it to the other party to show his appreciation. Although he still didn't understand the specific situation, Josh extracted a message from the other party's words that the enemy was approaching, so he led the team directly into the training ground to find a favorable terrain. Erwin could confirm the location of Josh and others through the secret camera, and then notify the elite Macon, but he didn't do so. Because if the other party was easily defeated, wouldn't the next dramatic plot be used? How could Excella find it interesting? It would also affect the accuracy of the actual combat data. These so-called elite mechanists are only relative to other mechanists, or in this African matching area. This kind of training ground is not something they are familiar with, but at least they have got rid of random marksmanship, their shooting accuracy is higher, and they also have certain tactical coordination. The captain among them was not much taller than the giant Macon. His weapon was a Gatling gun, and he carried a bullet box behind him, ready to use the weapon in his hand to tear apart the enemy in front of him. Erwin even sent out some of his bodyguards in order to please the goddess. The enemy was coming towards him, so Josh adopted a static approach. They were not familiar with the environment here and could not fight guerrillas, so he simply asked everyone to disperse and confirm the situation in the surrounding areas, at least to find out the situation in this small area. Then he immediately arranged for everyone to go into defensive positions and wait for the enemy to come. Erwin was looking excited, looking at the two sides getting closer and closer, waiting for a fierce and interesting battle. "You have to behave well to please my queen," Erwin whispered to himself, and suddenly his face froze. Another parasite he controlled was eliminated, and it was in the area of the processing plant, but all the BSAA soldiers here were defeated by him. "Is there any fish that slipped through the net?" The report came quickly, and there was only one enemy. This made Erwin feel a little relieved, and he transferred the remaining 100 or so ordinary Maconi to surround the enemy. Then he turned his eyes back to the screen and observed Josh's battle. Delta team has met those elite Maconists. There were twice as many enemies as them, but a single encounter with Josh brought the number of enemies down to their level. It might have been possible to annihilate all the enemies directly, but when Josh saw Nagatlan Maconi appearing, he immediately told everyone to retreat in the same direction. Most of the bunkers in this training ground cannot block Gatling gun attacks. Withdrawing from the enemy Gatlin's targeted strafing range, Josh immediately divided the small team into two teams, preparing to flank the enemy. Ta-ta-ta! Josh caught Gatlin Magini's attention with a triple shot. The teammates following him took this opportunity to deal with another elite Maconi. The motor rotated, and Gatlin fired while scanning towards Josh's position. The three Davids who circled to the other side took the opportunity to launch an attack without distracting any firepower, and concentrated on attacking Gatlin Maconi. One takes care of the head, and the others take care of the parasites that attack its spine. The reason for starting is to keep the minimum limit. As long as banelings appear, the enemy will be unable to aim, and Gatling will be immediately useless. With just a simple move, Erwin's most valued bodyguard was eliminated. Although he was unhappy that the bodyguard was easily defeated, he was still satisfied with this development. The ups and downs of the plot would better attract Axela's attention. Without waiting for the other elite Maconi to be dealt with, he picked up the microphone and said, "Very good. Congratulations on completing the first level. There will be surprises next. David, who had eliminated the last enemy, cursed Erwin, who was not present. Josh said, "Save some strength, let's clean up the battlefield quickly, we don't know how many battles will follow." After repeated battles, their bullet count has bottomed out, so they must use local materials to use the enemy's weapons. Haha, look at these garbage pickers. Erwin laughed on the radio, and then said, "Without further ado, let us invite the next round of contestants, another elite unit of BSAA, Alpha Team, to enter." Josh and the others froze on the spot, and the movements of their hands stopped. After a while, the sound of a mechanism was heard in the distance, which was exactly the same as the sound of the iron door being opened before. Josh gritted his teeth and said, "Everyone, there can be no hesitation in the next battle." But David hesitated for a moment, but immediately received a scolding from Josh. "David, we have no other choice. They are infected by parasites." In his opinion, since the other party sent Alpha Team, it must be controlled by parasites. Josh, who knew the opponent's strength, could not let go, otherwise his life and that of his men would be in danger. Yes, although everyone answered him, they were still full of hesitation. They took the enemy's weapons and spread out into pocket formations again, waiting for Alpha Team to fall into the trap. Erwin received another contact, saying that the intruder had broken through the defense line and had wreaked havoc in the factory. But the strange thing is that he did not perceive a large-scale death of the controlled parasites. He cursed angrily and turned on the monitoring equipment, trying to confirm the enemy's direction. Erwin glanced at the battle situation between Delta Team and Alpha Team. The two sides entered a confrontation, because both sides chose to stop silently, and no one took the initiative to attack, which made his perfect script unexpected from the beginning. Damn it! Cursing the two BSAA teams for being cowards, he turned his attention back to the factory surveillance. His own life was the most important thing, and Erwin couldn't help but feel glad that this was not a live broadcast. Soon he found the intruder, but the other party was not far away from him and had entered the underground biological and chemical weapons factory. It is here that the vast majority of placa parasites are mass-produced. Madfuck, how did that guy know the location of the underground factory? Erwin cursed and sent his bodyguards out, determined to eliminate the enemy before the enemy destroyed the factory. He did not receive any news from Excella about the next step, and because the batch of goods from the river port could not be sent out, he was still working overtime to produce the placa parasite and did not retreat. Wesker was dissatisfied with Erwin, a guy who was too ostentatious. The other party even wanted to get his possessions, so he planned to use the pursuit team of BSAA to clean up Erwin. This kind of person does not even have a place in the new era and is not worthy of being a member of the new era. Now the whole plan has been temporarily handed over to Excella by Wesker, and he is still concentrating on research and serious training to make final preparations for the upcoming decisive battle. It was Luo Guang who could kill here alone. He received intelligence about the simultaneous occurrence of biochemical crises in various parts of the world halfway, so he did not care about other people, drove alone, broke through the enemies along the way and rushed straight over. In addition to his original body in action, the clone is also carrying out activities. GIMZ put a lot of pressure on Wesker, so Cape Town, where its base is located, has also become a key target of attack. But unlike other places, GIMZ often carries out biochemical crisis publicity activities in Cape Town, and all its military and police personnel have received their training. In addition to the anti-biochemical training class that Luo Guang used to make money before, the citizens of Cape Town did not panic when facing the biochemical crisis, and formed one survival group after another based on the community. People successfully stopped the spread of parasites in the city before GIMZ joined the battlefield. GIMZ did not relax because of this. The same type of biochemical crisis occurred all over the African continent. The first priority was to solve the biochemical crisis incidents in South Africa. Although the elite troops were sent out by Wusong and Samus, Luo Guang was not afraid of being robbed again this time. Because when Luo Guang returned to Africa, he also sent 2 magic candies to Wusong's clone and the little white wolf. The main function of Wusong's is to add burst and electric control capabilities to the clone, while Xiao Bai's is only used to update the virus version in its body. This is not the end. Wusong also has to teach the lazy Xiao Bai a lesson to make it a combat force as soon as possible. As long as the highest combat strength is guaranteed, there is no need to worry about Wesker coming to steal the house again. On the other hand, the main forces of BSAA are used in the task of arresting Irwin, resulting in Magwan now only cooperating with the local Z government to hold on to the headquarters and unable to send troops to carry out rescue. Want to request GIMZ support, but the other party is also busy, and other branches obviously can't spare troops to help. Listening to the report of which city fell, the people in the fallen area turned around and attacked people in other places, etc. It hurts the heart of Magwan, the African minister of BSAA, all the time. He really regretted his conservative choice before. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 467. Luo Guang also felt regretful. As a time traveler, he had done many tests, thinking about whether he could change the plot of the game of Resident Evil. For example, Luo Guang tried to use the butterfly effect to let Leon get the decryption key and notebook in advance, but he and Ada did not miss it, and the two were still destined to be together, and the plot in Raccoon City did not change much. In the Lotford Island incident, he came from behind and successfully prevented Wesker from getting Alexia's research data and destroyed all the T. Veronica virus samples. At that time, Wesker was beaten to a pulp by him, and finally got the T. Veronica virus just like the plot of the game codenamed Veronica. After all the tests, Luo Guang found that he seemed to be able to change the fate of those small people. In addition, the one who was most affected was Chris. Because of Luo Guang, he had less intersection with Wesker, and even his position as his mortal enemy was replaced by Luo Guang. On the other hand, the trajectories of the main characters such as Leon, Ada, and Wesker did not change much in general, except that the time of the incident was greatly advanced. Because of these tests, Luo Guang, who was familiar with the plot of Resident Evil 5, spared Wesker's life and let him study the virus for him. At the same time, he also took precautions in advance according to the plot of the game. First, he successfully prevented Wesker from getting the resources for Umbrella's comeback at the Caucasus base, and found Spencer before the other party and took away the real legacy of Umbrella. Among them, the impact of Spencer's early resolution was also important, that is, Wesker failed to find the special antibodies in Jill's body, and ultimately failed to complete the Ouroboros virus. Then in the incident of the Church of Light, Luo Guang crushed Krauser to ashes, prevented Ada from taking away the amber parasite, and let the X organization set up a net to prevent Wesker from picking up Rags, and also pushed Leon and Ada's relationship. Wesker regarded himself as a mortal enemy and had many misunderstandings about himself, but Luo Guang, as Wesker's life and death friend, naturally understood each other very well. He knew that if the perfectionist Wesker did not get a power comparable to himself, he would not think about ruling the world. Although Luo Guang has not integrated many new viruses during this period, it is because ordinary viruses now have little improvement on the Shinra virus in his body, and ordinary viruses will not have any special abilities, so he only registered the genetic code in his body. But in order to maintain his strength over Wesker, his research on the Shinra virus is also done every day, so the paper data has not changed, which does not mean that Luo Guang's strength has stagnated during this period. The simplest point is that Luo Guang's skills in controlling electrical energy have become more and more proficient, and he has also extended the ability to control magnetic fields. All these things he did were to prevent the Ouroboros plan in Resident Evil 5 from appearing. However, there is a will of heaven, as if the plot of Resident Evil 5 must happen. Luo Guang closed Wesker's door, but fate opened a window for Wesker. Wesker, who believes in the supremacy of viruses, suddenly chose the Plaka parasite and achieved a curve overtaking. His combat power on paper jumped to the same level as himself, and he directly had the ability to challenge him. Therefore, when Luo Guang learned that Wesker's strength had greatly increased, he adopted the method of dying together, and the main body also set off for Africa on the same day to eliminate future troubles. In the game, Wesker seemed to have lost his mind. He planned to fly a bomber to launch a missile carrying the Ouroboros virus to the top of the troposphere, and then spread the virus to all parts of the world through wind currents. Let alone whether this plan can succeed, as a genius, he actually did not have a backup plan, and did not use the parasite to delay time to complete his plan. He did not do a good job of keeping secrets, and all his weaknesses and plans were heard by Jill, who was under control at the time. But Wesker in this world is not a fool with reduced intelligence. He had been suppressed and taken a step ahead by Luo Guang before, which made him abandon his arrogance and be more cautious. The plan to infect the whole world with parasites began to be laid out and prepared before Wesker developed the Shinwei parasite, so even if Luo Guang discovered the other party's conspiracy at the first time, he could not completely stop the implementation of the other party's plan. But no matter what, Luo Guang regretted it, but he would not stop because he had already caught up with Erwin, who was trying to escape. Excella did not give Erwin the order to retreat, but he was not a fool or a dog who would not care about his life. Seeing the enemy quickly confirm every house and ignore the Makanai who followed closely, he knew that the enemy's target was only him. "Stop him," Erwin shouted and ran to the underground garage. There were 8 bodyguards who received the order. 2 Gatling Makanai, 2 tribal Makanai holding huge wooden mallets, wearing tribal masks and traditional tribal uniforms, and the remaining 4 were elite soldier Makanai. Luo Guang's weapon was still the light machine gun he used before. The shaking of running did not affect his shooting accuracy at all. He completed the task of stopping the enemy from shooting and solving the enemy with continuous shooting, and solved all the enemies. Red Emperor, confirm the identity of these 2 tribesmen. Luo Guang solved so many enemies in the Kazuzu area, but it was the first time he saw a tribesman enemy dressed like this. So he planned to follow the clues to find another place that had been completely controlled by the Plaka parasite. Although there is a saying that the more dangerous the place, the safer it is, this is a trick that pharmaceutical companies have played out. Cities in various countries have launched inspection campaigns to ensure that no illegal research institutes have been dug up underground in their cities. Unless Wesker directly uses the research institute of Tri-Union Company, he must find another place to build a research institute. According to the plot of the game, this secret research institute is most likely located in the area of the Nadyubaya Empire, where the Sun Stairs flower is located. But Wesker did not invade the Caucasus base, so he naturally could not know the location of the ancient empire Nadyubaya Empire, and Luo Guang had people monitoring there all the time, and did not find anyone entering that area. Therefore, he could not go straight to Wesker Huanglong, and had to find trouble with Erwin first and find a way to confirm Wesker's location. But from the current situation, Erwin must have been parasitized by parasites. Luo Guang has a backup plan, but it is not known whether it will work, so he immediately asked the Red Emperor to investigate when he saw the tribesmen who did not live in the Kazuzu area. Erwin did not dare to look back to confirm the situation, and hurriedly got on the car and was about to escape from here. The bodyguards he carefully selected were easily dealt with by the enemy. Although he also got the power of the parasite, he didn't know how to fight, so he naturally had no intention of fighting with the enemy. The car left at a high speed, leaving the processing plant just in time for Hank and the others to arrive. When he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain in his back. He wanted to turn his head to look, but there was no sign of twisting his waist. Finally, Irwin finally confirmed the situation in the rearview mirror. At some point, a person sat behind him, leaning forward and looking at him. The speed of the car was getting slower and slower because his foot on the accelerator loosened. Before he finished speaking, the parasite in Irwin's body lost its life. But Irwin did not die. While Luo Guang dealt with the parasite, he was also trying to keep the other party alive and infect the other party at the same time, so that the other party would tell the information before dying. Where is your secret research institute? Luo Guang did not specify any research institute, because he did not know who the institute belonged to in the other party's cognition. My future wife, Excella. Irwin's arms naturally drooped, and he stopped steering. He spat out a mouthful of blood and told Luo Guang the location of the secret research institute. Luo Guang asked a few more questions, loosened his hand that was tightly holding the other's spine, and pulled it out from the back of the car seat. The other party didn't know the specific location, only that it was the settlement of the Nadubia tribe. Red Emperor, what's the situation with the ladder flower? The other party said that the secret research institute is in the Nadubia tribe. I can swear that no one has entered during this period of time. Luo Guang did not doubt the other party at the first time, and said, check the satellite and monitoring first. The location of the sun ladder flower is very critical, so he did not use other people's hands, but used machines to monitor it. Normally, no one in the world can invade the machine controlled by the Red Emperor, but it is better to check it again. Received, the identities of the two tribesmen have been found. Speak. They are indeed members of the Nadubia tribe, and their clothes are the latest models, so the clothes stored in the database are different. Therefore, Luo Guang did not recognize them at the first time. Later, Hong Huang reported that there were no problems with the satellite and surveillance. Luo Guang felt that this was very contradictory. Everything was normal at the Sun Stairs flower, but Wesker and his team had contact with the local tribesmen. He said to himself, why? Is it possible that they are migrant workers? Hong Huang thought of another possibility and said, maybe they moved away from their original place of residence. No matter which possibility, go and confirm it. Yes. Luo Guang got out of the car and dragged Irwin's body out of the car. Because the parasites in that guy's body were killed by himself, it was impossible for him to mutate into a monster. Then he searched out a mobile phone, found a laptop from the car, and found a lot of money. Throwing the money aside, Luo Guang immediately asked Hong Huang to crack Irwin's mobile phone and computer through the watch he was wearing. Excella, who was coordinating the entire plan, immediately sensed the fact that the parasites in Irwin's body had died. Wesker was training in the training ground again, leaving everything to her to deal with, so Excella did not disturb the other party. According to Wesker, the person who solved Irwin must be the mortal enemy named Luo Guang. After thinking for a while, she called Irwin's mobile phone. She was eager to know what was so special about the girl her man was thinking about. Are you Irwin's future wife? Luo Guang's first sentence made Excella angry. Luo Guang knew the other party's identity because there was a record of Excella's phone number in the phone book, and the note was future wife. Because of the existence of the parasite, he thought that the other party must have known that the parasite in Irwin's body had died when he called at this time, so he didn't pretend to be that perverted man. That damn guy is dead and he still wants to lay mines for me, Excella thought with gritted teeth. Seeing that the other party didn't speak, Luo Guang said again, oh? Did I make a mistake? Not the future, but the current wife. Time was tight, he needed to irritate the other party so that the other party would reveal his flaws. Excella snorted coldly and said, I'm not that guy's wife, but your girlfriend will soon become my slave. When the time comes, I will make you feel my current anger 100 times more. Oh? Wesker went to find his former team member. Luo Guang's tone did not change. He told Jill the news on his mobile phone and said, Now is a critical period. You are not stupid enough to think that you can rule the world by launching attacks all over the world and relying on these parasites alone, right? Humans have an absolute numerical advantage over the parasite-controlled machini. Even if the parasites can fight to support the war and turn the enemy into their own people, they will be solved sooner or later unless they exceed a certain threshold. Humph, I know this better than you. You don't think our plan will end like this, do you? This is just an appetizer. Ixala did not answer his first question, but Jill quickly replied to him, saying that he was fine. Both sides used code words. If it weren't for Jill, he wouldn't be able to match the code between the two. As for the possibility of being parasitized by parasites, the virus that Luo Guang injected into Jill's body was not vegetarian. Jill did participate in the task of dealing with the biochemical crisis, but she was not on the front line. Instead, she coordinated and directed the BSAA to cooperate with the military of other countries in the rear. Moreover, she and Wesker had never had any conflicts, so the other party certainly did not know how strong she was now, and naturally it was impossible for him to appear in person. I am not interested in these. Anyway, your plan will definitely fail. When will Wesker, the waste who was ravaged by me every day, dare to come out and face me? Luo Guang said this, and then reported to Ixala, the enemy, and the subsequent plans. This made Ixala more angry than directly saying that she was Erwin's wife. She loudly refuted for Wesker, the adults are not waste. You are no match for Lord Wesker. Speaking of which, I still have a lot of photos of Wesker being beaten half to death by me, and a few photos of him being beaten unconscious and sent to be a zero. Although Ixala did not know what zero meant, it did not prevent her from knowing that the other party was not saying good things. If you don't want the photo of Wesker being stabbed in the ass to be made public, let him come to me quickly. Luo Guang would naturally not do such a disgusting thing, but not doing it does not mean that he can't talk nonsense. At this time, Hong Huang informed her that he had located the other party's phone, so he hung up the phone directly and didn't bother with the other party. This just shows that he really doesn't care about the other party's plan to catch Jill. Hey! Damn it, Ixala threw down the phone. She was really stunned by Luo Guang's words. For the first time, she was smart and didn't want her comprehension ability to be so strong. The other party made her understand what it meant to be zero in one sentence. The phone rang again, bringing her not so good information. Your Majesty, someone was just tracking the location of your phone. We can't stop it at all. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. And thank you book friend 2020819013141466 for the reward meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 468. Ixala was stunned when she heard the news, feeling that something was wrong, and quickly asked, didn't you say that our network defense is impenetrable? And why did you just notify me now? I've already finished the phone call with the other party. Without saying a word, she first dumped the blame on the other party. Her perfect image in Wesker's heart could not be shattered. She must not admit that because the plan was implemented smoothly, she was proud that she had a sure chance of victory, so she relaxed her vigilance for a while. The hacker had been parasitized and replied expressionlessly, the other party is very powerful and has already invaded the specially modified mobile phone, because we can only contact it, which means we personally provide the verification code and channel for communication here. Send it to the other party. Just like a security door cannot prevent an acquaintance from committing a crime, there is nothing he can do if Ixala directly leads the person into the base. Not only that, when he discovered the situation, he immediately started to prevent the other party from intruding and notified the other party at the same time. As a result, the other party was on the phone and did not answer. Ixala saw many text messages and missed calls on her phone, thinking that Wesker couldn't know about these things, so she deleted the records. She replied, "You should immediately see if you can remedy it and make sure there is no backdoor in the system. I will ask the adults what to do next." Seeing Wesker, Axela said with a look of shame, "Lord Wesker, I am very sorry." In the end, she chose the latter between maintaining a perfect image and staying honest to Wesker, hoping to make up for the loss. After talking about the matter, she gave a solution and said, "I will notify you immediately and let my men be prepared to ensure that the enemy will never come back." "Are you saying that the other party took indecent photos of me when I was unconscious?" Wesker's focus was different from Axela's. Because he has always longed for a revenge battle in his heart, and Luo Guang is an obstacle to his rule of the world and an enemy he must deal with. Therefore, Wesker didn't care too much about his position being exposed to his mortal enemy. He believed that Luo Guang would be able to find his position sooner or later. "Yes, but I think this is just a trick of the enemy." Axela would not believe what the other party said. She saw that the shape of Wesker's chrysanthemum did not look like it had been developed, and said, "Maybe the other party just heard that we were going to capture his girlfriend, so he wanted to use this threat to negotiate with us." Naturally, Wesker would not admit that what Luo Guang said was not necessarily false. He was indeed knocked unconscious by the other party. He changed the topic and asked, "How is the situation in Europe?" Naturally, this question also included the kidnapping of Jill. He was really worried that the photos taken by Luo Guang would be made public. Although he doesn't stick to trivial matters when it comes to big things, as a perfectionist, he still doesn't want others to see those photos. Axela said, "After all, the European side is the base camp of BSAA, and there is also the assistance of F.B.CS NATO troops, so the progress throughout the day is not very good. That Valentien has been sitting in the headquarters, and our people have not found it. Chance. This is to be expected. Those developed countries cannot be defeated so easily." Wesker issued instructions for Jill, saying, "Resolve Valentine's matter as soon as possible. Luo Guang will come to the door soon. I don't want to miss a drama on the program list." He asked again, "How is the situation in the second phase?" The second phase of Wesker's plan is to infect more people with the Plaka parasite and create enough Machini to fight the whole world. One thing needs to be mentioned here. Plaka parasite type 3 is very contagious, and its host will directly infect other normal people with adult worms, saving the time for parasite development and infection. But relatively speaking, this method of communication has poor confidentiality in human society. It is easy to be discovered and difficult to secretly develop and expand the number of people. So Wesker thought of another method, which was to use modified Plaka parasite eggs to secretly infect a group of people. The targets of infection are the poor who need relief, etc. After taking control of the presidents of each division, they plan to use Sanlian's financial resources to carry out charitable activities around the world during the period before the official start of the plan. The free rice or bread given away has parasite eggs mixed in it. Beyond that, Axela used her business acumen to come up with another approach. She had her minions open fast food restaurants around the world. In order for the plan to be successful, it can be said that she has to reduce the price of the meals she sells to the lowest regardless of cost. Immediately after the opening, a week-long discount event was held to attract more people to eat meals containing insect eggs. The eggs are about the size of a mung bean, and the shell melts in the mouth. The larvae inside escape the teeth and tongue and go straight into the throat. Although the development will be much slower than normal, it will be staggered with the first burst, catching the enemy by surprise. Crazy is no longer enough to describe the plan of these two people. Although these stores were eventually investigated or closed down due to eating foreign objects. But according to this combination, at least tens of millions of people have eaten the eggs of the Plaka parasite, and eventually the infection has spread to the entire family. Especially in some small countries in Africa where people don't have enough clothes to eat and don't have enough food to eat, people are basically infected, and the entire country basically falls into the hands of Wesker and the others. Therefore, the two of them didn't pay much attention to the fact that the last batch of adult insects was not shipped out. Now the people in those small countries have all turned into machini and are preparing weapons and transportation vehicles. They will then form large armies to attack other countries that have not fallen. It is worth mentioning that this is how the internal attack on the White House came about. Parasites in their microscopic larval form are not so easy to detect. Moreover, under Wesker's research, the development speed of this parasite can be directly controlled by remote control, and Ashley's situation will definitely not happen again. So Excella replied, "It's very successful. Control of 40% of the countries on the Earth has fallen into our hands. Although other countries blocked the first wave of outbreaks, this second wave of multi-point outbreaks made them it fell into chaos and was unable to respond effectively for a while, resulting in heavy losses." Wesker sneered and said, "So even if they know that we are behind the scenes now, they can't use their hands to deal with us. Yes, as long as we enter the stalemate stage, the final victory will definitely be ours." Axela also laughed. Countries need time to stabilize domestic situations, and Wesker and the others also need time to mass-produce more parasites. Their plan has several more moves to make the world more chaotic. Plaka adults can move away from their host. They are small in stature and move quickly and flexibly. Wesker and the others can deliver them accurately and destroy the established gathering places of survivors from the inside. As for why Wesker and the others did not wait for these parasites to be ready before executing the plan, the reason is that the world has begun to prevent parasites. During that time, many of the hidden machinists they had prepared were exposed, so the White House attack would use the second method. Thinking that doing bad things must be done quickly, so Wesker decided to wait until the new batch of adult insects was mass-produced after taking over Sanley and Company. The attack on the headquarters of Sanley and Company was just a test. After confirming that no one knew their overall plan, they immediately launched the new era plan in an all-round way. Wesker said to Excella, "If my mortal enemy comes alone, just take him into the duel." This duel ground was transformed from a training ground. What if he brings a whole bunch of people? Then greet them well first. I have only one goal, and no one can hinder my duel with him. I know Axela was confident in Wesker. Luo Guan contacted the Red Emperor and asked, "How is the situation in other places? Can the airport be used?" The secret research institute where Wesker was located was a bit far away from the Kazuzu area, and driving would waste a lot of time, so he asked the Red Emperor to find a plane for him and prepare to parachute there. Official airports are basically unusable. Wesker did not specifically target transportation facilities such as airports. People rushed to these places to escape. In the end, Machini attacked the crowd and paralyzed the transportation system. It doesn't matter whether it's legal or not, as long as it can get me to my destination. Red Emperor quickly found a suitable target. I found a pilot. The airport is relatively close to here, but the price is $200,000. He said that now is a good opportunity to make a lot of money. This price is obviously too high. Even if the price surges due to the biohazard incident, this price is still too high. The reason is very simple. People in the surrounding area are infected by parasites, so there will be no customers. Otherwise, he would have taken the business and flown away, and there would be no need to wait for Luo Guang as a customer. Although he knew this, Luo Guang was not short of money, and solving Wesker was obviously more important than the $200,000, so he said, "Promise him, I will go there now." Received. The Red Emperor immediately contacted the other party. Luo Guang drove Erwin's car and said, "Is there any useful information in Erwin's mobile phone and computer? Apart from the information on the sale of biological and chemical weapons, there are only a few unsightly films left." The Red Emperor paused and said, "It's all this guy's intention for a certain woman." The women in the film were all transformed by Erwin to look like Excella, and they were all the same before they were parasitized. Send the relevant information to BSAA Africa branch. This is the task of their GIMZ. Although the situation is urgent, Luo Guang has not forgotten it. He added, also, let's report the fact that Erwin resisted arrest and we had to punish him on the spot. The Red Emperor understood what to do next. Then another call came in, and it was Hank. Luo Guang, we have arrived at the ore processing plant. Shiva also successfully rendezvoused with us. Her previous communicator was damaged by a bullet, so she lost contact. Hank continued, the enemy who blocked us suddenly twitched and fell to the ground. Is it because you killed the enemy leader? Before Luo Guang could tell the other party about the specific things that happened here, it was Hank who guessed it. Luo Guang replied, yes, Erwin has been killed. You clean up the enemies in the processing plant and look for the survivors of BSAA. By the way, they should be in the underground area. Luo Guang told the other party the passage into the underground area, and then said, after you rescue the BSAA people, evacuate the area directly and go back to the BSAA African branch to help solve the incident. Because the BSAA soldiers on the blockade suffered heavy losses, and due to geographical and cultural reasons, the African branch did not receive many resources, so it has basically lost its antibiochemical capabilities. Hank glanced at Shiva beside him and listened to Luo Guang's next words. That's right. For the next actions, you should focus on yourself and don't worry about BSAA. The mission of arresting Erwin has been successfully completed, and the commission we received has been completed. After this incident, the world structure will definitely undergo huge changes. Ma Guowan's performance in this crisis can only be said to be hard work and no credit, and he will definitely not be in this position in the future. Hank nodded and replied, I understand. Luo Guang added, we can discuss it with the boss for details. Although Hank is loyal, he is not familiar with Z governance, so it is best for someone to assist him in this aspect. If he had been asked to find Samus before, but now that he had learned how to clone himself, he would naturally just ask himself. I understand. Where are you, Luo Guang? Hank always felt that the other party's words were exactly the same as his previous boss's tone when he asked him to find Samus. Me? I'm going to behead the enemy general and will be back soon. Next, Luo Guang drove and controlled Wu Song's clone to handle things. At the same time, he also controlled another clone to set off from the Caucasus Brood base and go to Jill's location for insurance. When you step on the accelerator, the car can reach a speed of 305 km per hour. In about an hour, he arrived at the small airport. It used to be a farm, but it was later taken over by a small team and turned into an airport. Luo Guang drove the car, found the pilot, and stopped in front of him. Hey, are you the one who called and wanted to go to the Great Rift Valley? That's right, Wesker's Secret Research Institute is near the Great Rift Valley in East Africa, not on the side of the Nidaubaya tribe in West Africa. Yes, when will it take off? Sorry, someone wants to compete with you for the right to ride this plane. I know you booked it first, but the other person paid too much, but I didn't directly agree to it. Is it a different destination than mine? The pilot said, it's just because they are different that we have to bid. After a pause, he raised a finger frivolously and said, by the way, there is something I didn't have time to tell your secretary. I only want cash. Of course, I can also accept hard currencies like diamonds and gold, but the price calculated based on 10% off the market price. In Africa, gold and diamonds are favored by many warlords. He asked for cash because the situation was uncertain and he planned to take a break after completing the transaction. At the same time, this pilot does not want to have a reputation of being dishonest, which is the foundation of his business. If trust is broken, who will dare to fly with him in the future? Aren't they afraid that he will capture the customer and sell him piglets? That's why he deliberately made things difficult for the other party, so that the other party would give up and win another big business deal. I brought it. Luo Guang's words made the pilot look stunned and couldn't help but mutter, so well prepared. Just as the two of them were saying this, 2 battle-damaged subs also arrived, and 7 tall bodyguards escorted a man in his early 20s down. He also knew that someone had booked the plane first, so he offered a price that the pilot could not refuse. He believed that the other person must not have that much cash on him. The pilot said, "Now that both parties are here, let the bidding begin." He first said to Luo Guang, "Mr. Number 1, Mr. Number 2 offered $500,000 directly. How much do you want to offer?" "Wait," he said, $500,000 in cash, and you believed it?" Luo Guang asked, "None of these people came out with a cash box, how do I know if the other person really has money?" The pilot thought for a moment and saw that those people's waists were bulging as if they were carrying weapons. He felt a little unsure and looked at the young people over there. Mr. Number 2 clicked his tongue, waved his hand, and had someone carry a box over for the pilot to inspect. "No problem, now it's your turn." Luo Guang lifted 2 metal boxes directly from the back of the car. The Porsche SUV he drove was Erwin's getaway car just in case, so the other party naturally put a lot of money into it. $1 million, let's inspect it. Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 469. The Movement of the 4Z Unit. Luo Guang's words made the pilot's eyes sparkle, and his eyes were instantly attracted by the 2 boxes. He gently took the box and stroked the cold metal surface, as if he was stroking the smooth skin of a beautiful woman. Luo Guang was speechless and told the other party the password. This metal box naturally has a password, but Erwin did not set it after buying it, nor did he mess up the mechanical password lock, so it can be opened directly by pressing the switch. The pilot picked up a stack of cash inside and checked it quickly, while the competitor on the other side was gloomy at this time, waiting for his subordinate's report. Although he saw that the other party's car was more expensive than his 2 subs, and he knew that the other party was not short of money, who would have thought that he would meet someone who went out with so many US dollars and no bodyguards in this place? Google searched Can. The bodyguard came back soon and whispered in his ear, and his face became more and more gloomy. He glanced at Luo Guang and the pilot, and made other plans in his mind. After checking the goods, the pilot was in a good mood. No matter what the final result was, the price of this trip would definitely be more than $1 million. He closed the box and said with a smile, "What price is the other person going to offer?" He turned his head and saw that the bodyguards around the young man were touching their waists. "I'll give you your life, if you don't want to die." Before the other party finished speaking, 2 different gunshots sounded almost at the same time, and the bodyguards were all shot and fell to the ground in an instant. The rest of the young man's words were instantly stuck in his mouth and couldn't spit out. Luo Guang said calmly, "It's not enough for you to arrange only 1 sniper." The pilot turned his head to look at the man with the strange pistol, opened his mouth and moved, and said, "I don't plan to get rid of all the other parties." He just wanted to warn the young man not to act rashly, and tell him that violence in this world can solve many problems, but that also requires recognizing the strength of the opponent. Although this airport is small, it is definitely impossible for 1 person to take care of it. The pilot naturally has a companion, and he dares to come out alone because of the importance of his special identity as a pilot. When Luo Guang drove in, he noticed that there was a sniper lying on top of the hangar not far away, and there were also several people ambushing in the maintenance plant on the other side. He said, "I didn't get rid of all the opponents, there is still 1 left." The young man was spoiled by his parents since he was a child. He was spoiled and domineering in his own territory. No one dared to disobey him, including his parents who stayed behind to cover his escape. He naturally didn't understand the dangers of the world because he had never been beaten by society. He thought he could solve problems with violence as before. After hearing Luo Guang's words, he, who was sitting on the ground in shock, finally reacted from the shock. He looked at the pilot and shouted, "Hey! He cheated. I was about to quote you 2 million, and he threatened me." Luo Guang sighed and said, "You are responsible for dealing with this guy. I'm in a hurry." The pilot also sighed and shouted to the monitor on his body, "Boys, you heard it, get the plane ready." Then he said to the young man earnestly, "Hey, didn't you just hear that there were 2 gunshots, one far and one near?" He only had one gun in his hand, so where did the other gunshot come from? Haven't you thought about it? One of the young man's bodyguards was killed by his men, so how could he make peace with the other party next? Don't look at what he said just now, that he didn't plan to deal with all the other people. That's because Luo Guang is his client. He can't scare the client, so naturally he uses this method to show that he is not so cruel. But Luo Guang can see through his disguise, so he said to let the other party deal with the young man. As for the problem of the thieves, he just showed this trick to the pilots. Listening to the pilot's words, the young man seemed to gradually realize the reality that he had lost the bid. He had experienced many dangers to escape. Originally, his fleet had 8 cars. The pilot took out a Python revolver and said, "It seems that you have no self-awareness of the current situation." He reminded him before just to let the other party die more clearly. The young man raised his head and looked at the black muzzle. There was no last words, only a gunshot. Luo Guang got on the plane smoothly, and he gave the car directly to those people. "Are you really going to jump directly later? There is an airport nearby." After listening to the other party's plan, the pilot confirmed with Luo Guang several times. Since it was the customer's request, he would not say much under normal circumstances. In this line of work, less talk and more work is the right way. But there were tens of millions of dollars on the car sent by Luo Guang, which made him worry about this high-quality customer. He was still thinking about cooperating with the other party more. With the help of the GIMZ troops, the battle in Cape Town, which was about to end, became fierce again because of the second outbreak. The survivors' positions formed by communities in various places fell into chaos because their members suddenly mutated into Makanai and attacked their own people. This is another difficulty of the biochemical crisis. Faced with the situation where familiar relatives and friends turned into zombies and attacked them, whether these civilians could decisively shoot and attack will be the key to the survival of the survivors. GIMZ also explained and practiced this point during antibiochemical training, so at least those who have undergone training will not have the idea that zombies are just sick and may turn back into humans. Training explanations and actual combat cannot be generalized, so there are still many people who were fed worms by Makanai because of their hesitation. The embankment of 1,000 miles collapsed in the anthill, and after a gap was opened, several communities fell. The military and police departments suffered heavy losses because the mutated Makanai could shoot. One of the 8-member teams was completely wiped out when their teammates suddenly mutated while performing a cleanup mission. The remaining officials of the Cape Town city government immediately contacted the GIMZ unit, hoping that they would come back to help solve the problem. But G.I.M.Z's team has already reached its destination and won't be able to come back for a while. In order to avoid being resented, Sams directly diverted the hatred and let the officials at the destination argue with Cape Town. The squad continues to focus on clearing Makanai and rescuing civilians. "Boss, do we want those civilians to come here to take refuge? The situation was not too bad before, and the citizens were naturally unwilling to leave their homes. Even if some people feel that it is safer to go to the GIMZ base, in the end they still stay in the community with the public." In addition to herd mentality, Another reason is the fear that an unguarded home will be ransacked. Wu Song said, "This matter can only be done by the officials in Cape Town. I contacted them before and asked them to send a group of people over here before the situation is not critical. They all said that there is no need to bother and they believe they can solve it." Question. But they won't refuse now, right? Yes, but our base cannot accommodate as many people as Cape Town. The situation was relatively optimistic before, allowing citizens to come in batches to take refuge. But now the situation has changed, and problems can easily arise. Wu Song continued, "First of all, we have to find a way to confirm what happened to those guys who suddenly mutated. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if parasites are mixed in. According to the intelligence collected, some people who originally had no problems with the examination suddenly mutated into parasitic zombies. This problem cannot be solved. It is obviously not a good idea to rashly contain and gather people together." Samus happened to have new information in his hand, and said, "I have some information here, which was sent from the Lighthouse country." "Tell me about it." Wu Song did not ask about the source of the other party's information. Some departments carefully analyzed and compared the films taken during the physical examination some time ago with those taken by the scanner, and found that there were parasites in the digestive system, but they were smaller than adults or even larvae, so they ignored them. Sams continued, "After multiple comparisons, they confirmed that this is also a Plaka parasite. Although it is small, it grows very fast. They speculate that the growth rate can be artificially controlled, just like controlling the action of the parasite. Does anyone else know about this besides us?" "They've told the BSAA and the FBC." Wu Song nodded and asked, "Can the scanner gun also scan these larvae?" "Yes, but because it is not big, the inspectors only pay attention to whether there are adult parasites, and naturally ignore this." Sams knew the reason why the boss asked this, and said, "If we allow citizens to come in, the inspection speed cannot be too fast. This is a meticulous job." She also agreed with her boss's idea of separately accepting citizens for asylum. Wu Song said, "Now that you know the reason, go and notify South Africa, tell them about this, and suggest that they establish a unified survivor base. This is better than scattered survival. It will also be more convenient to clean up and rescue in the future." Sams had a different idea. "It's easy to be attacked on the journey when we are gathering, and if something goes wrong, all the survivors will be wiped out. Then we will take the blame. Although the boss has good intentions, if something goes wrong, the person who made the suggestion will definitely take the blame." She explained, "And we don't know if there will be another round of outbreaks. To be on the safe side, it's better not to gather them together yet. Both methods of decentralization and concentration have their own advantages and disadvantages. Since the current situation is barely passable, don't mess with it for the time being." "Okay, I'll do as you say, but I still have to inform them about the little bug." "I understand." After saying that, Samus went out to carry out Wu Song's instructions. Wu Song sighed, then picked up the phone and called Linda Baldwin, the head of the GIMZ Research Institute. "Dr. Linda, how is the research progress on the Plaka parasite?" Dr. Linda, who was waiting for the results of the experiment, replied, "Lewis is busy." Although the demon worm issue was resolved due to Luo Guang, Lewis and the others did not stop their research because of this, they just lowered the priority of the project by one level. When the Plaka parasite reappeared, he immediately arranged for Lewis to conduct research and development on the Plaka parasite. "Where's the progress?" Dr. Linda explained in detail. Lewis said that the previous parasite inhibitory drugs were outdated. Although they were improved once when he came here, they still only had the effect of forcing dormancy on the larvae and had no effect on the current situation. So now it is still being improved and we hope to make an anthelmintic drug for adult worms. Lewis not only wants to get rid of the Plaka parasite, he also wants to save more people. So he didn't develop insecticides, But anthelmintics. Are the Plaka parasites I sent over before useful? Wusong was referring to the parasites in the troops that Wesker had sent to attack before. Yes, but unfortunately there are no living bodies for research. Risks and benefits coexist, and Linda thinks her boss is too conservative. Lewis also regrets this. The difficulty he wants to overcome now is to solve the problem of adult worms in the body and save people at the same time, but this cannot be studied without experimental subjects. So he also told Linda his ideas and requirements, hoping that she could help him convince his boss. After listening to Linda's words, Wusong thought for a while and said, "Ensure safety first." Dr. Linda knew that the boss had given in, and hurriedly said, "Thank you, boss. But I also have a request. I plan to contact the mysterious country to form a joint research team with you." This was what Wusong wanted to say, and continued, "Things have changed. Now the situation is more urgent. We need to solve this crisis as soon as possible. The most important thing is to suppress the spread of parasites." He told Linda about the MaleProtagonist parasite and said, "You must check carefully and carefully. It's the same as the Peskov incident, but this time it's global. Because of the biochemical crisis, the Bear country handled this disaster better than other countries." Dr. Linda nodded and said, "I know, otherwise I would have killed myself in Raccoon City." After ending the call with the other party, Wusong called Lieutenant General Lee to discuss and confirm the situation. In summary, the mysterious country's anti-biochemical troops showed their prowess, and the GIMZ training course was worth the money. After discussing the cooperation with the other party on this incident, he did not have time to breathe. Sams came back with the words of the Cape Town officials, saying, "The Cape Town officials hope that after the GIMZ team returns, they will immediately send someone to pick them up at our base. They want to turn this place into their temporary command post." Wusong was surprised and said, "Their municipal government building has not fallen, right? Under heavy protection, why do they risk coming out?" Sams was angry when she heard this. Most of the soldiers were deployed around the municipal building, and the police could only be sent out with a small number of soldiers to perform clearing and rescue missions. She said, "It's because of the second wave of outbreaks. The few troops they have were hit. They suffered a lot of losses, and they are worried that there will be another wave of outbreaks, so they plan to bring people here. That doesn't matter, but I have the final say on my territory. This is a private territory, and Wusong will not let them mess around. But if they do this, will it cause panic among the citizens? The survivors' communities are distributed everywhere. They can't hide their escape. It will be troublesome if the citizens come here. Even if the other party agrees to follow the opinions of GIMZ, Samus doesn't want those officials to come, because these guys are useless and eat for free. As for civilians, she will welcome them, but they must come in an orderly manner and be inspected one by one. Promise them first. Anyway, our team won't be back for a while after all. This is not the end of the world." Wusong thinks that officials also have their own uses, such as dealing with other officials. This is inevitable. If they want to gain a foothold in South Africa, they must consider this and take care of the emotions of those officials. However, for GIMZ, there is no need to bow to those officials, because after the biochemical crisis that has occurred throughout the world, the importance of anti-biochemical will be further increased. And as an anti-biochemical mercenary group, many countries will welcome them and hope that they will settle down in their own countries. The reason for wanting to settle down may not be for the people below, but only for those above. But no matter which one, the GIMZ troops will definitely not become a dog without a home. I understand Samus disagreed with the receiving official, but he would not be passive and slack, and immediately reply to the other party. Meow meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 470. In addition to the GIMZ troops, various forces are also taking active actions. Wesker's plan only has these two tricks for the time being, and the surviving humans finally have a chance to breathe. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Although the actual power of the United Nations is not great, its headquarters was still attacked by Xela, and almost all members were killed. So the conference that could have been held directly can only be held online now. This is also a common threat faced by all mankind, so this meeting has less wrangling and scolding, but more suspicion. Because representatives of countries around the world attended this meeting, but no one knows if there are any controlled guys among them. The meeting officially began, but everyone fell into silence. As the host of this conference, O'Brien naturally knew what everyone was worried about, and had already come up with a solution, saying, "I remember that all countries have scanners to a greater or lesser extent, we can do a test on the spot." Many people nodded and agreed with this statement. But the president of Benin in Africa said, "There are only 5 in our country, and they were all lost in the presidential palace in the previous battle. How can we verify it in this case? The price of the scanner is not cheaper than an AR rifle with full accessories and pendants, but under the coordination of the United Nations, even the poorest countries can still get 5 scanners connected to the BSAA database." Morgan also attended the meeting and answered directly, "I'm sorry, you can't attend the meeting for the time being." "How can you do this?" another Prime Minister of Lesotho shouted, "We also have the right to survive. Although our country is poor, there are millions of people. You can't give up on them." The president of Benin nodded and shouted, "Yes, we have a larger population, and you can't just watch them die." The heads of various branches of BSAA were also online. Jill didn't speak, but observed everyone. President Seymour said, "We can't take this risk, and let me say something unpleasant. Even if your country knows the specific content of the meeting, what can it do? Do you have the ability to implement it? Only when we solve our own problems can we free up our hands to help you." The Prime Minister of Great Britain immediately followed up and said disdainfully, "That's right. And I'm afraid that the military of your small countries has been exhausted now. In the end, you still have to rely on us for help. Leaving the meeting now is also helping us." The president of Benin was furious. The originally quiet communication channel became as noisy as a vegetable market because of the words of the British Prime Minister. The French president angrily scolded, "You small countries, shut up. This incident is different from the past. Even if we want to help you, we have to wait until we have dealt with domestic affairs." He turned to O'Brien and said, "It is impossible for the United Nations to discuss countermeasures now. Instead of a bunch of people arguing here, it is better for each of us to deal with internal problems first and then hold a meeting." Many small countries were affected and questioned each other in turn. O'Brien suddenly interrupted and said, "Everyone, let's not be diverted." The voice with a loud volume instantly calmed the scene. He said, "This is the enemy's purpose, to make us strife and quarrel among ourselves. We have fallen into someone else's evil plan." After this, the crowd stopped quarreling, but many people looked indignant. O'Brien continued, "We also anticipated the situation and reached a cooperation with the FBC." Morgan now continued, "At the beginning, we played the good cop and the bad cop in order to find the enemies hidden among them." After a pause, he said without the slightly disdainful tone before, "We and the BSAA analyzed everyone present through micro-expressions and psychological analysis when you were arguing just now." O'Brien said that he treated everyone equally. The BSAA and the FBC also supervise each other. "Next, we will announce the list. Only those confirmed by both parties need to leave temporarily. But this does not mean that those countries are really controlled. You can use the scanner to prove yourself on the spot," he added at the end. "No matter which country these scanners are produced in, they can be uploaded to the database of the BSAA or FBC online, and the two have been synchronized." President Seymour was the first to agree, "We agree." The next NATO member countries all agreed, and other countries also agreed one after another. The third-generation parasites that Wesker improved using the Shinwei parasites are very limited, so naturally they cannot be distributed to the countries that have already fallen. And these fallen countries basically have no stores of the Tri-Union Company, so it is impossible to distribute the precious third-generation improved parasites in advance. The ordinary Plaka 3 type has good concealment, the host's appearance will not change, and its intelligence can understand commands, but they have no ability to quarrel, and there are only two choices for facial expressions. Either the face is expressionless or full of anger, so Xela's instructions to these people are to wait and see, and survive this werewolf killing. The person who said the list was Morgan, who hoped to show the power of FBC or himself. As for the problem of offending people, Morgan only needs to look at the face of the lighthouse country, and it doesn't matter whether other countries are offended or not. But O'Brien doesn't like to be in the spotlight or offend others. If the other party likes to do it, just let him do it. Benin and Lesotho are both among the least developed countries. Although they have large populations, they are not the key targets, so their national leaders have not been affected by improved type 3 parasites. It's just that their strength is too weak, and they are unable to solve or even prevent the spread of the biological crisis in the country at this time. Therefore, without assistance, they will fall sooner or later, and they will make a big fuss. The representatives of the two countries could not help but heave a sigh of relief when they heard that they were not on the list. Many of the country representatives on the list did not participate in the quarrel just now. They did not receive orders, and they did not know the normal reactions of Benin and Lesotho. It is true that a weak country has no diplomacy, but when facing the destruction of the country, it is unjustifiable not to cry out and do its best to fight for the interests of one's own country. Therefore, these silent representatives have basically become the focus of attention. There are also some big countries who do not participate in the quarrel, but to put it bluntly, the intelligence networks between the major countries can also confirm whether the other party has been tricked, so the major countries are well aware of whether there is anything going on, and naturally there is no slander. Something like that happens. There are more than 50 countries on the list. After excluding representatives who can self-certify, more than 30 countries have been kicked out of the video conference. Some of these country representatives directly revealed their true colors, while others did not say much. They deliberately created a contrast, indicating that Xela was making a last-ditch effort. Why is it not the last struggle? It's because there are still undiscovered infected people in the meeting, and everything is a cover for those hidden people. Next, O'Brien stopped doing the test and started getting down to business. First, we need to talk about the parasite eggs. BSAA also has its own investigation and research into the causes of the second wave of outbreaks. During the first wave of the outbreak, Jill raided Sanley & Company's sealed fast food restaurant and found Plaka parasite eggs that had not been used up in the hidden refrigerator. After hearing the news, O'Brien immediately asked people to investigate the situation of Sanley's fast food restaurants around the world. He quickly confirmed that a large number of Sanley's fast food restaurants had opened and closed during this period, and all of them were due to food reasons. Insect. After introducing the source of the information, he continued, "We have tested and found that the survival rate of this parasite's eggs in boiling water is 5.6%, while none of the microscopic parasites survive, so everyone must boil the water before drinking it. At the same time, all products produced by Sanley & Company's factories and various Sanweo products of unknown origin must be destroyed." Morgan then said, "But there is still a probability that problems will occur, so ensuring the water source is the top priority. We must ensure that there are no problems with the water supply plant or water source." President Seymour asked Leon what he thought, and then said, "This plan seems to be ineffective. The enemy has many ways to bypass the defenders of the water supply plant and drop parasite eggs. Morgan could finally feel proud this time and said, "Our FBC Research Institute has developed an insecticide that can effectively eliminate Plaka parasite eggs in water, and it will naturally evaporate after boiling. This is also used in conjunction with BSAA, otherwise O'Brien would not recommend that the other party drink boiling water even if it was only 5.6%. The president of the bear country went straight to the key question and said, "What is this recipe? Is it made public?" "This is of course free and open to the public," Morgan said without any hesitation. "This is indeed a good business that can be monopolized. Before competing products appear, Morgan will definitely make a lot of money. But FBC is an organization under NATO, and Morgan certainly cannot refuse the request of lighthouse countries and others to provide free formula to NATO member countries. Rather than worrying about scarcity, we are worried about inequality. Now, a biochemical crisis has broken out not just in one or two countries, but also in the entire world. If we take advantage of the current situation and sell it at a high price to non-NATO countries, we will definitely gain huge benefits, but in the future we will inevitably be stumbling upon and secretly targeted. If other countries are determined to grab it head-on or have the mentality that if I don't live well, you won't live well, and are provoked by the enemy, the third war may have to start in advance. Another point is that providing free pesticide formulas can bring prestige to the FBC and help the FBC expand to other countries outside NATO. Morgan's previous focus on the biochemical crisis in India was also intended to expand the scope of the F.B.C's powers. He didn't want the FBC to remain NATO's dog and be led by the nose by the lighthouse country. As long as he contributes to solving this biochemical crisis that has affected the whole world, he will make money. There is no need for him to create extraneous matters or make trouble. Morgan was satisfied with the praise from the representatives on the screen and said, "We will publish the next formula on the FBC official website. Please download it as soon as possible and put it into production." O'Brien waited for a while and said, "Next, we hope that all countries can keep in touch and communicate the latest information in a timely manner. The specific method is to use an online bulletin board, and our BSAA will send it directly to the bulletin board entrance. Judging from the format and content of the website address, it is the official website of the United Nations. That's all for now. Countries, please solve domestic problems first. Then we hope to gather the power of the world to form a peacekeeping force to solve the Plaka parasites around the world." O'Brien's words gave various countries a shot in the arm. Axela on the other side also received this information. Wesker was in seclusion waiting for Luo Guang to arrive, so it was up to Axela to decide how to deal with the incident. This insecticide is indeed a problem, and since it can be used in water, it is hard to guarantee that it cannot be used directly against the Plaka parasite. So Axela immediately asked her subordinates to download the formula for testing and research countermeasures. After the video conference ended, the permanent members held another small meeting. This was the real meeting to discuss countermeasures, so only one round of screening was conducted before. President Seymour also asked the same question. Morgan replied, "We have tested it, and it is powerless against parasite hosts and adults. It can only be used to remove parasites in the form of eggs and larvae." These shortcomings were not announced because they did not want to undermine the confidence of others. O'Brien brought the topic back to the main topic and said, "There is only one purpose for this meeting, to eliminate the leader of the parasite." President Samus nodded. He knew from Leon that the Plaka parasite has a weakness, that is, after the control parasite dies, the subordinate parasite will also die. It's just that Simmons mentioned that the Plaka parasite this time is a little different from the previous record, and it is not clear whether it is still set like this. Morgan just learned about this from President Seymour. According to the president, BSAA should not know these characteristics of the Plaka parasite, which involves the secret mission of the lighthouse nation. So he asked on behalf of him, "I want to ask how you know this? Has BSAA successfully killed a control parasite?" O'Brien received this news from Luo Guang first, which was faster than McGuan's news, so it is obvious that GIMZ has made a contribution again this time. He would not take credit for anything and tell about Irwin. He said, "So we hired GIMZ agents to carry out the arrest mission. Because Irwin refused to be arrested, we shot him directly according to the law. That guy also had parasites in his body, so GIMZ guessed what was going on as soon as they saw the situation." After hearing this, Seymour nodded, as long as it was not a leak of intelligence. After answering the question, O'Brien continued, "To deal with the leader, I hope that all countries can form a joint force to deal with the enemy leader together." The president of the Bear country asked, "Have you found the location of the enemy leader? Then why form a joint force? Just use missiles and nuclear bombs to bomb him." O'Brien denied, "No, but according to this incident, one of the people is the president of the West African branch of Tri-Union, so the approximate location of Wesker should also be in Africa. We, BSAA, have temporarily confirmed several possible locations based on Hunter's intelligence." Luo Guang did not tell Jill about Wesker's location for the time being. He had a similar idea to the president of the Bear country, to bomb him directly with missiles. But the best way is to solve Wesker himself, otherwise he is worried that Wesker hiding underground will successfully escape, and it will be difficult to find him again at that time. Morgan also just learned about this and said, "So this is a search team." O'Brien elaborated, "We can't just use missiles and nuclear bombs to clean up a suspected location, right? There is no unowned land now. It is the territory of another country. We can't mess around." He is still confident in solving this biochemical crisis, so he will not do things without limit. Of course, for the European and American countries present, sacrificing the interests of a small African country to solve this disaster is a big profit. The representative of the mysterious country said, "And the enemy is not stupid. If our first round of bombing fails to eliminate the enemy, what do you think the other party will do next? At that time, the other party will become a vagrant, and it will be difficult to locate the location." The British Prime Minister said, "Wait, is it possible that the enemy is running around now?" As soon as this was said, everyone fell into silence. If the enemy really did that, they could only fight those parasites head-on, and the losses would be much greater. O'Brien said, "This is indeed possible, so we need to form a special team to track and eliminate the enemy. If it is confirmed that the enemy stays in one place, it will be best to directly bomb the opponent. But if not, they can also personally deal with the enemy." Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow, you are my motivation to persist, T.